Today is March 1st, 2022. This is the regularly scheduled meeting of the Cupertino City Council. It's 6:45 p.m. Madam City Clerk, can you please call the roll?
Councilmember Moore?
Here.
Councilmember Way?
Here.
Councilmember Willie?
Here.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Here.
Mayor Paul?
Here. Thank you very much, Madam City Clerk. And our first section on our agenda is ceremonial matters and presentations. Item number 1 is a proclamation declaring March as Youth Arts Month on behalf of those who advocate for art education to all elementary, middle, and secondary students. And so we're very grateful for that. We have the Arts Coordinator, Sophia Fojas, representing the Santa Clara County Office of Education here today to present some slides and to receive the proclamation. And so welcome, Sophia.
Thank you, Mayor Paul and members of the City Council. Thank you for inviting me to speak on the agenda tonight. My name again is Sophia Fojas. I'm the Arts Coordinator in charge of Artspiration, the Arts Education Initiative of the Santa Clara County Office of Education. I'm here to speak to you about March as Youth Arts Month. Next slide.
Oh, we'll need to share their screen at this point.
Let me cue that.
Okay, we can see it. Welcome.
Thanks. Thank you. This recognition began in 1961 to celebrate art education in youth, for youth in schools. The goals are underscoring the value of the arts in education, partnerships with schools, organizations, and the larger community, increased understanding of the arts through arts participation, increased support from organizations, community, and governmental entities, and a recognition as the arts is the component of a well-rounded curricula to prepare students for a global economy. Since those early years, recognition has since expanded to all the disciplines of arts, dance, music, theater, and media arts. And this year's theme is Arts Connect Us. Next slide, please. In celebration of Youth Arts Month, the Santa Clara County Office of Education again hosts its annual Young Artist Showcase this year for students TK through 12 in our public schools. The Santa Clara County has the largest collection of youth art of any county office in the state. This year's theme is Contact Zones, the places where we belong. A digital slideshow of all the entries will be presented at the 2022 Arts as Emancipatory Education virtual conference in partnership with San Jose State's Lurie College of Education. We will also be sharing the virtual stage with the Grammy-nominated Alphabet Rockers, who will be teaching a hip-hop workshop for teachers and performing a mini concert. Janice Sapagao, the 2021 Santa Clara County Poet Laureate, will be hosting poetry performances and workshops. My name again is Sophia Fojas, and on behalf of the Santa Clara County Office of Education, thank you for recognizing March as Youth Arts Month.
Well, Sophia, thank you so very much for being here to accept this proclamation and for suggesting it. I know that we all very deeply value arts, and especially in education. It's so critical in everything that we do, frankly, and it's really nice to be able to see that recognition here and to provide it. And so I'm going to go ahead and ask our members of staff to turn off their cameras so that we can have a quick screenshot photo with the proclamation indicated. And so I guess we'll just take a moment, smile, looking forward. And thank you very much. Welcome to Cupertino, by the way. I neglected to say that. And we hope to have lots of wonderful art-related activities together with the county well into the future and not just this month.
Yeah, can I say something?
Okay, very briefly, I'm going to give everyone let's say a 15-second opportunity since we want to open up. So,
thank you. So for everyone, if you have not been to the Santa Clara Office of Education building, you must visit. It's an art gallery, and it has all kinds of arts made by students from all different schools in different medium. Just an amazing at every different corner. It's just an amazing thing to walk through it. So visit that building.
Great.
Thank you. And the architecture itself is great. It has river flowing into the building. The architecture itself is amazing. Yeah. Thank you.
Good stuff. Okay, I don't see any further hands raised, and so let us go on to item number 2 at this time. Item number 2 is a proclamation proclaiming March as American Red Cross Month. We have our old friend and stalwart of the American Red Cross local chapter in Cupertino, Red Cross Silicon Valley, Stuart Chesson here. Stuart, welcome, and thank you as well for suggesting this. It is a great reminder every year that we have so many deeply felt needs in our community and across the country and world. Thank you for everything that you and your organization does to, like the mission statement says, alleviate human suffering throughout. So welcome, Stuart. I understand that you have about a 5-minute presentation that you'd like to provide.
Yeah, maybe hopefully shorten it a little bit. But yes, I'm Stuart Chesson. I'm a resident of Cupertino and a longtime volunteer for American Red Cross. And this is Red Cross Month, and our main task is to try to eliminate human suffering with the generosity of our volunteers and of our donors. Next slide, please. So we have the various services that we offer across, and next slide. And one of the things that we respond most to is home fires. And that's one of the most things that unfortunately we respond to. But we do collect blood. We're over 40% of the blood supply throughout the United States. And we help the military and their families, especially the ones that are getting called over to be on alert for what's happening in Ukraine. Our International Red Cross does the measles and rubella vaccinations, and we train many people in CPR and other life-saving type. Next slide, please. And so there's been in Santa Clara County, we've gone to 222 different fires in here. So unfortunately, it happens here all too often. And we do help veterans in the county as well as collecting the blood. And we've had over 9,000 people trained in the Santa Clara County area. Next slide, please. So we're one of the best known red organizations, nonprofits. You ask somebody if they know what Red Cross is, and almost every country knows of Red Cross. May not know everything we do, but they do know. Next slide, please. So there's all sorts of disasters, and as you know, the disasters have been increasing, unfortunately. So it's I don't think there's a rest period anymore during the years. Next slide. So in 2014, we would go to one major disaster, and now it's tripled in 2020 with the rise of the climate changes that have been going on. Next slide, please. So with home fires, people have this fire, they don't know what to do, and we get volunteers to come out there and help. And a lot of people don't even have any insurance, and so they have nowhere to turn, and lots of times we can give them financial assistance so then they can get a few nights in a motel or stuff like that. So that really will help them out. Next slide, please. We try to even help those people to save lives by installing smoke alarms and establishing what to do when there is a fire, like have an escape plan. So we've done this, and we've unfortunately had to go to some fires, but luckily nobody that we know of has died where we've installed an alarm. And we hope to do more of these, especially as the COVID risk goes down, that we go into homes and actually install these. Next slide, please. Blood bank, we're 40% of the blood supply. Next slide. And we try to hold, next slide, please. We try to hold these blood drives in many places, at workplaces, schools, colleges, and so it's important to keep these things up. blood has a short shelf life, so we have to constantly keep replacing these. And then military, we help the military as much as possible on that, whether it's when they go, next slide please, whether they're getting sent overseas to help support the defense of the United States, and whether they're having problems like housing or other financial problems, or even family support, because these are hardships on people. Next slide. So, and then the CPR and First Aid, we've been doing this for a long time. We do about 2 million people a year. Next slide, please. And these have been known to save lives, where in the past people would sit around and not know exactly what to do. So now we have mannequins that feed back to say, are you compressing hard enough to see, can you move the blood around the brain and other vital organs? Next slide, please. So, and we try to help the vulnerable people. And this is like Ukraine. We're doing a lot there in Ukraine with the Ukrainian Red Cross, as well as other countries around Ukraine, where we're taking the immigrants, the people that are going to the other countries to try to get away from any of the battles, and they have no place to stay. Next slide. So when those major disasters go, we ask for the volunteers to spend a few weeks out to help people and help people reconnect, start establishing what their lives could be, and help them recover. Next slide, please. So if you want to volunteer, donate funds, or host a blood drive, or get trained, just go to redcross.org. And next slide. And I want to thank you for the time and opportunity, for the valuable time that you have, that I wanted to make sure we got this important information across. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Stuart, and thank you for all that you do. So let's go ahead and take a quick screenshot again for the proclamation from the city for Red Cross Month. Okay, great. So let us go ahead and move to item 3. Thanks much again, Stuart. Great seeing you. And we will continue this with postponements and orders of the day. Madam City Clerk, are there any staff postponements or orders of the day requests?
No postponement or orders of the day requests, Mayor.
Okay, great. And anybody from council, does anybody want to make a postponement or rearrange any item on the agenda at this time? I don't see any hands raised, so let's go ahead and move on to the next section, which is oral communications. Oral communications relates to communications over any item that is not on our agenda from members of the public. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. As with all items, please have your hand raised by the time that the first person is done speaking. And if you do have your hand raised on the Zoom function, I would go ahead and call on you for oral communications. Our 2 hands raised from the public for this at this time are Connie Chow and Jenny Griffin. And I see a Kwang Liu is also having a hand raised. And so our first speaker is Connie Chow. Welcome, Connie.
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes, welcome.
Hi. Good evening, everyone. My name is Connie Chow, and I'm so grateful for this opportunity to speak in support of more doulas in Cupertino. So I've been a Cupertino resident for almost 25 years. My husband, Steve, and I live in the Garden Gate area behind Memorial Park. We raised our 2 children here, and we're drawn to the strong sense of community in this city. My daughter and her boyfriend live next door to us and are the proud parents of a 1.5-year-old female Samoyed named Sashi. And that means that I'm now a proud grandparent. So Sashi and I developed a deep bond thanks to the countless walks in beautiful Memorial Park, as well as surrounding neighborhoods. So without a doubt, the last few years have really tested everyone. And now, more than ever, our community's well-being, both physical and emotional, needs to be addressed. And studies have shown that keeping physically fit and maintaining strong social connections are absolutely key to good health. The city plays a key role in supporting its residents' well-being, and one big way would be to add more doulas, especially since I've heard that we have over 11,000 dogs now in Cupertino, which is pretty amazing. So Sashi and I have been very fortunate to experience the Jollyman Park doula, and we love it because it gives Sashi a chance to get some really rigorous exercise, something that our walks just can't provide, and gives both of us a chance for dedicated social time with other dogs and their owners. We've also been lucky to get some training and other dog and non-dog related tips. So I love this doula model, and I'm confident that having more in Cupertino would have such a positive impact on our residents' well-being. And I believe we'd have a more cohesive community to boot. So as you develop Cupertino city plans moving forward, I strongly urge the City Council to include more doulas. In fact, Memorial Park would be an ideal next candidate, with several grassy and protected areas that would work. Our community would be even more vibrant as a result. Thank you again for this opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Connie. And the hands raised are the same. Our next speaker is Jenny Griffin. Welcome, Jenny.
Thank you, Mayor Darcy. I just wanted to bring you all up to date on some new housing bill legislation. Actually, it is pertaining to housing, even though it's parking. There was a bill last year called AB 4001, which was introduced by Laura Friedman, who is a legislator from Southern California. And this was going to reduce parking minimums across the state, so cities could not say that a certain amount of parking was required for new construction. Well, that bill went away at the end of January because it was not taken up again. It was put as a 2-year bill. But on February 1st, Laura Friedman, Scott Wiener, and Nancy Skinner reintroduced another version of this bill, which is AB 2097. And this again reduces the parking minimums across the state. This bill, I had problems with this bill last year because it is basically saying that there would be no parking in new construction. All the cars would be out in the neighborhoods, on the roads. And it's also sort of like implying that you don't have the right to drive, which to me, it's quite, to someone to make that decision for you is really, really begging like equity. The other issue that has come up is that this bill would potentially eliminate electrical vehicle recharging sites in new construction. This is multifamily apartments, affordable housing, apartment buildings that might be built with the new housing bills. If you are planning to have no parking spaces or parking garages in this new high-rise apartment buildings, which is what they're pushing with the bills, you would have no cars. Why in the world would a developer include EV recharging sites? So this bill is going to wind up doing more damage than it would good. The other thing is, too, it sends a message to people that may be living in affordable housing that they shouldn't be driving cars. They have no right to drive cars, let alone electrical vehicles. And, I'm saying right now, no one has the right to make that decision for a family or an individual living in any type of housing, affordable, high income. That is really a leading question, and it's pushing the rights of people. So I think that this bill should be amended, or it should just not pass. I am hoping that the governor will not sign it. He didn't sign it last year, and I'm hoping that will be the same thing again this year. Also today, Los Angeles' housing element was denied by HCD.
Jenny, that's your 3 minutes. And so we'll go on to our next and final speaker under Oral Communications. That is Quang Liu. Welcome, Quang.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm going to read the statement prepared by our brilliant husky Kubo. just in case. So Kubo is about 6. We adopted him 5 years ago. If we knew a dog can be this rewarding, we would have skipped the 3 kids. Okay, I didn't write that, right? So like most dogs, he loved to run, play, chase, and occasionally harm other dogs. By the way, he's fixed. We've been going to Memorial Park for years. We tried Mary Dog Park a few times, but hanging out next to 85 Soundwall, plus all the dust, is a very unpleasant way to kickstart the morning. Memorial Park is beautiful. It's big, it's well maintained, thanks to you guys and the people that work there daily. Oh, by the way, thanks for getting rid of the questionable green water that was there for years. So I really appreciate that. So Memorial Park has a lot of room for everyone, even cat people. The softball field to me is perfect for Dola because it's 80% fenced and barely used in the morning. So like Connie said, to state the obvious, Dola is great for the community. The dog get to hang out, sniff each other's butts, brag and gossip, and occasionally argue. And human will get to do the same, hopefully minus the sniffing part. So I have made friends and acquaintances there that I wouldn't have in normal day-to-day routine around town. On a personal note, I'm not young and built like Brad Pitt anymore, so pulling an 85-pound husky is a real challenge. There is no comparison for Kubo to enjoy running freely and playing in a big field versus on leash. So my doctor told me Kubo is adding years to my life, so this is the least I can do for him, is to fight for a Dola. Besides, any additional activities or exercise could easily turn me into Asian Brad Pitt again. Okay, and again, I did not write that. So the sad part about this is that we moved as a family from Mountain View 25 years ago. And now we drive there to let him play in Mountain View. So that doesn't make sense to me. So we do this almost every morning just so he can play. All the parks in Mountain View is Dola, by the way, until 10:30, and some parks are all day. So it makes sense to me to add more Dola around here, plus Asian Brad Pitt in Cupertino, no-brainer. Thank you.
Thank you, Kwang. And that concludes our oral communications for this evening. Our next section on our agenda is reports by council and staff. Item number 3 are brief reports on our council member activities and brief announcements. Would anyone like to provide a no more than 1 minute synopsis of an announcement or activities? Councilmember Moore?
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. I'll go pretty quickly. Yesterday, I attended a 2-hour VTA chairperson training, which is great timing as we're hopeful that we'll be moving back to in-person meetings. Going back in time, on Friday, the February 18th, I attended the State of the Valley. One data point is that Silicon Valley's population declined in 2021 for the first time in more than a dozen years. And Saturday, February 26th, I attended the Westport groundbreaking, which had the honor of the presence of Congressman Ro Khanna and Supervisor Smidian in attendance. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Councilmember Wei.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I try to go fast too. I did attend the February 17th, the Senator Dave Cortesi's task force on families on student mental health issues, because we do have a mental health work program. So that's really a very enlightening meeting because it says ending the silence with empathy and versus sympathy. So I really like that, what they're talking about. And I want to especially emphasize, I went to a Rotary Club in Gilroy and I listened to their mayor's state of the city address, and it really, she talks about transit. So I think that's one of our targets too. We need good transit system in Silicon Valley. And just to follow up with Councilmember Moore's groundbreaking in Westport, I really want to thank the staff because I think we have multiple staff there setting tents, videotaping. So thank you, staff, for working on a Saturday day. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Wei. Next, we have Vice Mayor Chow.
On the 19th, I attended the San Francisco Chinese New Year parade hosted by API Coalition. Many elected officials joined. On the 20th, I attended the speech contest hosted by Confucius, someone who hosts Confucius annual ceremony. And then on the 26th, I attended the Westport opening too. It was great that we finally have a groundbreaking for that. And on the 28th, I attended a county youth homelessness demonstration program meeting, and they receive HUD funding every year, and they are trying to talk about priorities on how to spend that money. It's interesting to hear they have a specific youth subcommittee on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Chow. And next we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, so just to touch on the groundbreaking at Westport, we all know housing is desperately needed, and so it's great that we now have that groundbreaking. Next one, on March 18th, Silicon Valley at Home had a roundtable on housing element, and we had people, councilmen from all our surrounding communities. And so hearing the sharing of ideas, I think, is really going to help us to understand how we are going to do this within the confines of Silicon Valley. So I'll say that. The third one I'll just mention is, I was so happy to hear the proclamation for Red Cross and Stuart talking, and I'm so happy that he actually mentioned the Ukrainian crisis that's playing out. And when I looked on the internet for places to help, Red Cross was right there. So all of us were so lucky that we're in a place with a democracy and we're free. We need to be very aware that that's not the case everywhere, and a lot of people are currently dying in Ukraine. So hopefully we can all find ways to help. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Willie. And as several of council members mentioned, we did have a groundbreaking for Westport. I do want to let our members of the public know that we did keep it very limited invite with regard to mainly just speakers and council, so that we could respond adequately to the COVID pandemic conditions. So it was a great thing to be able to put together. I'm happy to do it. We had a lot of pre-planning. And as someone mentioned, yes, indeed, our staff did put in Saturday time, particularly Deborah Nascimento and our video crew. They really did a great job, putting everything together. And Esther Kwan, in the aftermath of it, is doing a great job helping us, with the PR and getting the press release out. A couple of items I did want to mention. I did meet with Assemblymember Mark Berman over the course of the time since we last met regularly, and we talked about VTA options. As you might be aware, Assemblymember Berman put forward a bill last year with regard to what to do with the VTA board, essentially. And so he and I had a very good conversation last year. A year ago, I just joined the board, and so I was really happy that he was taking the bill off of the table, or at least extending it into a 2-year bill at that point. So it was a productive conversation, and so I'm looking forward to good things coming from the transit area of our county in the future. And so the other thing I'd like to mention is that I did get up to San Francisco, and I visited the Chinese Historical Society Museum as a result of meeting the executive director of that museum when we taped the Chinese Exclusion Act panel. And so I'm really looking forward to being able to pollinate with the Historical Society. Jennifer Furlong, the executive director of our Historical Society, met me there. And we had a really great conversation with Justin Hoover, who is the executive director up there. And so really looking forward to being able to bring an event to Cupertino probably in May. I think that's Asian American History Month. And to be able to follow up on the promise that I made over in during the taping of the panel itself, to bring a group of people up to Angel Island. They have a new museum display there, as well as I think also the Chinese Historical Society Museum there, which I think would be quite fitting. So great, thanks very much. And we are on to item 4, which I believe is our regular council assignment updates. And so these are our committee assignments that are approved in December of every year. Vice Mayor Chow, you have your hand raised. Would you like to report out on your council committee assignments since our last regular meeting?
Okay, so on the 17th, we had a legislative review committee where the new lobbyist firm joined. And then we had a really good extensive discussion on the current direction of the legislators. And then that we also prepared, we also had on the February 23rd, we had the very first City Council special meeting with the legislators, where we invite Dave Cortese and Evan Law to have a conversation with the city. I think we agree on we will find common ground on things that we can work on. And then this year specifically, it's a year we might request potential funding for infrastructures. So maybe funding for affordable housing or other infrastructure need the city may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor Chow. Councilmember Moore.
Hey, thank you, Mayor Paul. So I'm also on the LRC, and it was great to meet our new lobbyists. That it appears to be 4 generations from Joe Gonzalez and Sons, which is very exciting. It looks like they've been in Sacramento since the late 60s. And we had at our initial meeting on the 17th, we had the father and 2 sons on our meeting. So it was very exciting to meet them and hear how they go and advocate for us in Sacramento. On the 24th, I'm on the Audit Committee. I was nominated and elected chair. And to me, what was kind of most significant is that we received the internal audit procurement review report, which had some terrific ideas for our manager to consider, including centralizing our procurement process and potentially hiring a chief procurement officer with some staff. And they had some wonderful ideas, and I've been very happy with the information that we've been getting from Moss Adams from their internal audit. And I think as we are a growing city, their ideas for steering that growth have been very timely. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Moore. Next, we have Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, so being on the Silicon Valley Clean Energy Committee, I'll bring forth the item of interest for this one. And that is, it's no surprise, everybody has been watching power bills go up, and they're going to go up again in March. But rest assured, the customers, those of us who get our power via Silicon Valley Clean Energy, their rates, they will go up, but they will still be below PG&E's rates. So don't get shocked when you do see it. Your rates are still going to be below PG&E, only by 1%, but that's still below. They also put $3 million into a fund for low-income residents. So by all means, look at the website, see if you qualify, because they have $3 million set aside to assist those in the lower income groups, realizing that power rates are going up. So I'll leave it with that. Thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Willie. And so, Councilmember Wade, did you want to provide any committee updates? Okay, so I'll go ahead with the committee updates. We did have a good VTA workshop in the ensuing time. One of the follow-ups from a prior VTA board meeting was a connection with Caltrans to try to get a group together to clean up the wayside litter. So a couple of follow-ups from that. Caltrans has followed up, and we're scheduling a meeting. So really appreciative of our city manager and his outreach efforts there, and being willing to take those meetings with us. Related to that, actually, with regard to the Lawrence Mitty project and litter, we actually did have a good meeting with water district representatives. And so they mentioned to us a creek cleanup day on May 21st. So mark your calendar for that. That's Saturday, May 21st. And hopefully we can get a good volunteer group together and working on that. On that note, I did want to express my appreciation to our city manager as well as our city attorney for being there over the course of this weekend on Saturday for the Lawrence Mitty groundbreaking. That was very nice to see that kind of support from our direct hire staff, from council and the public. And a couple of other items with regard to the committee assignments. We had our West Valley mayors and managers meeting. And I'll go ahead and let Jim provide any updates from there. I think that's always a very useful meeting to have. We talked to our local fire chief, and it was an interesting discussion. And I'll share one tidbit of it, which I thought was kind of fascinating. We had our mayor of Montecito ask the fire chief, because he had been in charge of controlled fires in the Santa Cruz County mountain range area. And, for a while, it kind of fell off because he moved on from that position. And so Mayor Lahi of Montecito, he asked, well, who's that on to kind of keep making sure that, we're safe and the controlled fires happen. And, it was kind of a little bit of punting about, but, I pointed out to Mayor Lahi, I said to him, it's really on you as mayor, and don't expect to get any credit out of it. And so I think if we end up kind of taking on that perspective in public service, not only does it serve us quite well, because a lot of people are very happy to accommodate that kind of thinking, but it also keeps us going forward with regard to making sure that we're optimizing our service. So, I think, frankly, we're doing that, to the extent that it's, not widely recognized or universally so. I think at the end of it, it's really just a matter of making sure we're doing the right things for the community at large. So, thanks for all that support. And so I'm going to go on to item number 5, which should be our city manager's update. And so, yes, it is. Jim, do you have a city manager's update for us today?
Yes, actually, I do. Just a couple items, but I think this one, we've been hearing, not just myself, but previous, city managers talk about this for the last couple of years. This might be one of my last ones, and that's on the COVID. So as of February 24th, 2022, the County of Santa Clara Public Health Department announced that the 7-day rolling average for the new COVID cases was at 501. Their break point was 550. So that was on the 24th. So if the 7-day rolling average of new daily cases remained at or below the 550 mark for 7 consecutive days, then the indoor masking requirement would no longer be mandatory beginning March 2nd, which is going to be tomorrow. And as of this evening, I just pulled it up as we were sitting here. The county health website is now showing 327 cases on a rolling average. So that means we've hit that mark. So as of tomorrow, the mask mandate is going to be repealed within Santa Clara County. The governor also signed a executive order today, also removing that potential for any kind of masks indoors. So that has been removed. But in saying all that, there still is the ability to be out there and be tested. We all need to still maintain being safe, wash your hands and do everything we've been doing for the last couple of years. County of Santa Clara will continue the PCR testing at the Cupertino Center. Testing that was on February 21st resulted in 235 tests administered, but this was a decline when you compared to January 31st. We did have 15 Citizen Corps volunteers staffed and supplemented the clinical services. Testing will return, on Monday, March 7th, so a week from today, or almost a week from today, from 9:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. and appointments can be scheduled at the usual www.sccfreetest.org. Testing also is available at the countywide location, including Walgreens on Bollinger and El Camino Health on Belco Parkway. Appointments can be made again at www.sccfreetest.org for all the remaining sites around the county. And the other nice, fun one is we're going to be having, it's coming up to that Easter time, the Big Bunny 5K and Kids Fun Run. On Saturday, April 16th, the city of Cupertino will hold the annual Big Bunny 5K and Kids Fun Run at the Cupertino Civic Center. This is a fun, family-oriented event that's become a tradition in many households and promotes a positive, healthy, connected community. So registration for the 5K race and the kids run are at reg4rec.org. So reg4rec.org. And that's what I have for tonight.
Great, thanks, Jim. And so let's go on to our consent calendar. Those are items 6 through 9. Are there any members of our council that would like to pull any items on our consent calendar this evening? Seeing no hands raised, I will go to our members of the public. Are there any members of the public that would like a consent calendar item pulled? And we have Jean Bedord. Welcome, Jean. And this isn't subject to the 3 minutes, just if you have a particular item on consent that you like pulled.
Yes, item 9.
Item 9, okay, very good. So let's go ahead and pull item 9. And would anyone like to make a motion for consent calendar items 6 through 8 as recommended on our agenda? Councilmember Way.
So moved.
And Councilmember Moore.
Second.
Thank you. Madam City Clerk, would you please take a vote, a roll call vote on items 6 through 8?
Councilmember Moore,
Aye.
Councilmember Way,
Aye.
Councilmember Willie,
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow,
Aye.
Mayor Paul.
Aye.
Motion carries unanimously.
Okay, very good. So let's go ahead and bring this, and I'm taking it that the member of the public pulled this out of curiosity as to what it is. And so let's go ahead and provide an opportunity for, so Jean has her hand raised again. Jean, let me take this a little bit out of order since you pulled it. Would you like to just briefly share with us the reason why you'd like it pulled so that we can inform our processing of this?
Yes, I would. I asked to have this pulled because I feel it needs more recognition than routine approval on the consent calendar. Now, Christina can give you more information about what the award is, but it is an award by the Government Finance Officers Association, and it is significant. It's a recognition of excellence in public finance compared to thousands of other public entities. It's really quite impressive that this is the 24th consecutive Distinguished Budget Presentation Award by the city. Every new city manager has commented about Cupertino's strong financial position, and this is a tribute to our strong finance department and its collaboration with other city departments. As a member of the community, I'm saddened that Zach Koresh, our finance manager, has decided to move on from the revolving governance door here in Cupertino. Zach, you have been knowledgeable and thoughtful when I have had questions about city finances. Your reports are well written and understandable to folks like me who aren't financial professionals. We will miss your strong contributions to our city government. Thank you for your service to Cupertino.
Thank you, Jean. Let's go on to the presentation. And so I do see our Director of Administrative Services, Christina Alfaro, here. Christina, would you like to provide a summary of this award?
Yes, actually, I think Jean did an excellent job providing a summary. That it's a national award from the Government Finance Officers Association. The city has received it. It's the 24th consecutive year. I actually want to just take a moment and thank City Manager Jim Troop. I think so often we go through and we've gotten this award consecutively and we include it in the budget and kind of go on our merry way and don't take the opportunity to really recognize and realize the achievement because there are several different categories. We are rated by 3 different raters. It's definitely not a rubber stamp, and it's really a tool that we use to make sure our budget is in line with all the best practices when it comes to our budget book. And it was really Jim's idea to bring this award forward. And so a big thank you and kudos to him. And again, a big thank you to all the department directors and to their teams. Anytime we're up here talking about the budget, it's a group effort. Zach is wonderful. I think I do an okay job, but we get to be up here and be the face of all the hard work of a variety of different people in the city. Thank you.
Okay, great. Well, thank you very much, Director Alfaro. I would definitely echo that sentiment. I'd love to know a lot more about the people in finance department that do a lot of the day-to-day work. I'm often very impressed by the knowledge of our members of our community in terms of the internal personnel workings of our Cupertino City employee pool. And I have been over the course of years because it seems sometimes that members of the public know more about what's going on with our employee pool than members of council, which I find very interestingly informed. Mr. City Manager, you have your hand raised. Would you like to say a few words?
Just real quick, I'll make it very quick, Mayor. Thank you. it says award, and really what it should be saying is an accreditation, because it goes through the process of, does it meet all of the standards on a professional budgeting level? And something that I need to point out too is if the city ever decided to do some kind of a bond issue, you know, going out for debt of some kind, there's all different kinds. One of the things the bond rating agencies will do is they will ask to look at your past budgets, your past annual financial reports. And part of that is to see, did it qualify and did it receive the award? Because if it did, then they're more apt to say, okay, good, they already got the reward. They've been reviewed by their peers, and they can go on. So I've done many bond issues and other kinds of debt issues, and they always want to see if we've received those awards. So it is more than just saying, you know, how well the city did, but it also helps us when it comes out to that time, if we ever had to do a bond issue. That was it.
Great. Thank you very much, Jim. And we'll go on to Councilmember White.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I just want to add my thanks to our finance team. Government finance is very complicated, and to have a budget that's fluent and that represents our city and gets award and professional accreditation, that's amazing. And I also want to wish Zach a good journey and explore opportunities, and I think we will really miss him. Thank you, Zach, for your contribution.
Great. Thank you very much, Councilmember White. Yeah, so I'll go ahead and put in my 2 cents here. I often say this externally. I think we have, at this point, really a straight A staff. And so I pegged it at 95%. But I do see a lot of work from the public sector, you know, particularly from my colleagues on council, the course of the last 4 years or so, in terms of really getting into those details. I mean, I don't think we were really quite as high of a level at that point, you know, a few years ago, but I think we were still very good. What a lot of members of the public don't see is the hours and hours of pouring into not just the statutory requirements, not just the details of our budgets, not just, you know, reading and poring over the various issues and how they interrelate with each other, but how those improvements get made over time. And so I can tell you right now, you know, last year's audit committee was comprised of Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Moore, and you know, quite a bit was done on the finance front. You know, when I was first on the audit committee, I believe that probably would have been 2015 or 2016. You know, I also, you know, had a bit of a learning curve, but you know, to this day, I can honestly say that every time I go in there, I see more things, and am constantly in a learning, you know, educational type of process. But I think, you know, to really be fair to the public representatives, there's a lot of work that goes into it as well, and it's a bit of a thankless task with regard to being able to, for example, point out, hey, you know, we have things like requirements that are, you know, clearly baked into our ordinance and the state ordinance. There's this constant, you know, pushback and push and pull that you don't necessarily, you know, see on the surface, but it's always happening. But I will say, in an effort to get to that 5% and to look at other budgets, for instance, that could actually be exemplars for us to communicate a little bit more clearly some of the aspects of our budget. That's something that takes a great deal of work. And it's not just a soundbite of 30 seconds and a pat on the back, which I say is, you know, it's important and has their place, but I don't think we should give short shrift to, you know, the hours upon hours and days and years upon years of work that has been done in order to get us to the point collectively where we're, I think, in a fantastic position, and we're in a fantastic position for a reason. So, well, thank you very much, and appreciate this opportunity to discuss, applaud, and keep the work going. Our next item on the agenda is item number 10, which I think a lot of our attendees are here today for. So really happy to, you know, see the turnout. Our second reading of ordinances have none. Under public hearings is where item 10 lies, and that is the consideration of a vacation of a public pedestrian walkway easement through track 9405, which runs through Campo de Lozano subdivision located near 20138 Rodriguez Avenue. And so, Mr. City Manager, would you like to introduce the presenter of this item?
Thank you, Mayor. I'm actually going to be looking towards Chad Mosley, our Assistant Director, City Engineer, for this one.
Thank you, Jim. I'm going to share my screen. And you all see a PowerPoint? No
Yes.
PowerPoints?
Yep.
Okay, very good. Sorry. Technical difficulties here, bear with me. Zoom is not being my friend. Okay. All right. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of council. My name is Chad Mosley. I'm the Assistant Director of Public Works. The item presented for council consideration is the vacation of a public pedestrian walkway easement. Council approved a resolution to notice the public of its intent to vacate this easement on February 1st. The city has posted the required notices of the vacation in conformance with the California Streets and Highways Code. Approval of this resolution will result in the city filing with the County Recorder's Office a resolution to vacate the easement, removing the public's ability to utilize the walkway and clearing the easement from the title of the Campo de Lozano subdivision. Public walkway easement in question is situated within the Campo de Lozano subdivision near 20138 Rodriguez Avenue. The subdivision is situated immediately north of the Regnart Creek Trail between Blaney Avenue and Torrey Avenue.
The slide is not advanced. Is that it's supposed to?
It's supposed to.
We're seeing only the cover page.
No. Has that changed yet? All right, let me stop sharing and try this again. There, do you see it now?
Yes, we do.
All right, very good. Sorry about that. The public walkway easement in question is situated within the Campo de Lozano subdivision near 20138 Rodriguez Avenue. The subdivision is situated immediately north of the Regnart Creek Trail between Blaney Avenue and Torrey Avenue. The walkway runs roughly north-south through the subdivision and connects Rodriguez Avenue on the north to Regnart Creek Trail on the south. The granting of the easement and installation of the walkway was a condition of approval for the development when it was constructed in 2002. The portion of Regnart Creek Trail adjacent to the property was constructed with a development and has been open to the public use since that time. The trail continued eastward from the development and connected to the sidewalk on De Palma Lane, located on the right side of this image. The city is currently improving the Regnart Creek Trail. The project extends the trail system to the west of the subdivision, where it connects to and runs along the Civic Center property, and also provides access to Rodriguez Avenue, approximately 550 feet west of the subdivision. The project also expands the trail towards the east to Blaney Avenue and on to East Estates Drive, where it connects to an existing trail segment that continues to Creekside Park. The residents of the Campo de Lozano subdivision have requested that the city vacate the existing walkway easement through their development so that the walkway can be restricted from public access to address resident concerns over safety and security. Removing this public access walkway reduces connectivity for the public. However, the expansion of the Regnart Creek Trail provides for alternative points of connection for the residents of Cupertino, including access to the Civic Center and on-street parking near the trailhead on Rodriguez Avenue. Per Councilmember Moore's request, staff did review the concern regarding Regnart Creek Trail creating a situation that would entice residents to jaywalk across Rodriguez Avenue. Since the trail runs east-west in this vicinity and lies roughly parallel with Rodriguez Avenue, the intersections at each end of Rodriguez Avenue at Torrey and Blaney provide for legal protected pedestrian crossings. A trail user coming from the west can use the protected intersection at Torrey and cross Rodriguez only 400 feet from the trailhead, while a trail user from the east would likely access the trail at the Blaney trailhead or cross Rodriguez at Blaney and continue along the south side of Rodriguez to the trailhead. Although the trail provides for an alternative and more pleasant means of pedestrian and bicycle travel in relation to Rodriguez Avenue, is not currently being constructed with any other amenities aside from mobility that should further entice pedestrians to illegally cross the street, especially since even with jaywalking, it may involve some backtracking of pedestrian and bicyclists. So in short, the alternative form of mobility being provided by the trail in this area does not seem to be an incentive enough to inspire illegal pedestrian crossing, as little is gained by the effort, and typically requires some backtracking for pedestrians. The recommended action is to consider adopting a resolution ordering the vacation of the walkway easements. This action is being performed in accordance with the California Streets and Highways Code, and I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, thanks very much. Let's go to our members of the public first in terms of hearing the feedback, and then we'll go to our city council for follow-up questions and comments prior to deliberation. I see a number of hands raised at this point, and so I'll go ahead and call on the first hand raised. That's Revathi Narasimhan. And so we have 3 minutes for each comment. I do ask that members of the public keep your comments relatively concise given the volume of comments today. And with regard to your hands, please have your hand raised by the time that Revathi, our first speaker, is done speaking. And I'll go ahead and after Revathi is done, I will read off the list of people in that public commenter group. And so Revathi, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect, thank you. Good evening, City Council members and Mayor Paul. I'm a longtime resident of Cupertino and a member of Walk by Cupertino. My name is Revathi Narasimhan and I live on Holyhead Lane. I'm asking to vote no to closing this path and not to revisit this issue. When I read about this agenda item, I couldn't believe what I was reading. Why would the city give away a piece of easement that is public property to private homeowners? Why are we even discussing this? Closing the path is a blatant misuse of public property in favor of private citizens. Cupertino City Council would give the easement away of approximately $1 million in value in public funds to the 8 private homeowners. The private homeowners have even asked the city to cover thousands of dollars in application costs for vacating the easement. There are far better uses of our tax dollars than giving public easement property away. The council has already spent almost $2 million in privacy mitigation measures to make the nearby homeowners comfortable with the trail. Adding to that total is not the right thing for all Cupertino residents. It also sets a dangerous precedent to end a currently in use and valid easement when others are being used for the same purpose around Cupertino right now. There will now be a legal justification for other residents to demand similar closure of other easements. We've spent days, nights, midnights, past midnights, a lot more of our precious time across many residents discussing the Regnard Creek Trail. I sincerely request you to unanimously vote no to closing this path and also request that we don't revisit this issue. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Revathi. And I'll go ahead and read off the list of people with their hands raised at this point so as to not have any confusion about identity and order. I'll be calling on you in this order: Marilyn Sherry, Dino Sakis, Helene Davis, John Zhu, Yano Banks, and I apologize if that's a mispronunciation, Gary Visherup, Seema Linskog, Kevin Liu, Jennifer Sheeran, Connie Cunningham, Juliette Sheeran, Stella, Jean Bedord, Shingsu, Tagi Sadati, Christina Young, Lily Koban, someone identified as caller 8761, which I assume is on the phone, Eric Linskog, Janet Van Zoren, and Stephen Scharf. And so our first speaker, our next speaker, I should say, is Marilyn Sherry. Welcome, Marilyn. Marilyn, you'll need to unmute your microphone in order to talk.
Sorry, didn't know I was muted.
Okay, we can hear you. Welcome.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. Thank you, council members, for giving me the opportunity to speak. I urge you to vote no on this. I really think voting yes on this sets a bad legal precedent for loss of control of all public easements currently controlled by the city. Why wouldn't the residents along other easements decide to have their easements closed too? How could the city continue safe walking and biking programs when so many of them rely on other public easements that could be contested based on this decision? Voting yes displays favoritism. Members of the council who vote yes show the voters of Cupertino that they are happy to put the desires of the owners of 8 pieces of property in an HOA over the long identified needs of hundreds of residents who use the connector to the Regner Creek Trail daily. Excuse me. After all, over 20 years of the owners of these 8 properties have signed a legal agreement that includes this easement. So why do they have any right to close off that access now? Council members who vote yes show a lack of respect for decades of planning by the citizens of Cupertino. Voting yes is a vote against diversity, equity, and inclusion. The Cupertino Parks and Recreation Master Plan states that over 80% of Cupertino residents wish for more trails and connecting paths in our city. Any council member who votes yes on the closure of the Lozano Lane access path is clearly voting against one of our city's core priorities, getting greater connectivity among neighbors and residents. Please vote no on vacating the city's easement that would allow the closing of the Lozano Lane access path to the Regner Creek Trail. Show the voters of our city that you respect our desire to be an interconnected community. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Marilyn. Our next speaker is Dino Sakis. Welcome, Dino.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Thank you for allowing me to speak, Mayor Paul and City Council members. I'm a 30-plus year resident of Cupertino. I'm an avid walker and bicyclist. I urge you to vote no on closing this path along Lozano Lane to the Regner Creek Trail. And some of my rationale is this. As a walker, cyclist, and parent, I try to stay off busy roads whenever possible because it makes for a more enjoyable trip, with the added benefit of being safer. Shortcuts like the Lozano Lane easement make it easier to walk or bike during my daily activities, giving more options. So the more shortcuts there are, the more ideas you have for staying off the main roads. And closing this path early gets me on Blaney or Rodriguez early, and they're busier, so it's not necessarily better. As a parent, I encourage families to allow their children to walk or bike to school. Studies show that the most common concern of parents is safety, specifically cars, and we're spending millions, as you heard earlier, to provide safer routes to school. And to drive to zero accidents in response to these concerns. So another, to me, a compelling reason to not close access. And then you've heard that already that we spent millions on the Regner Creek Trail. It's about to open. And in order to optimize this benefit, we need to maybe be looking for more easements, not reducing them. As a citizen, when I see my neighbors walking and cycling, it creates a sense of community. And I'd like to thank everyone in city government for all the effort and budget put into making our city more pedestrian friendly. The McClellan Road, separated bike lanes, you name it. The city's getting better and better. And it'd just be a shame to reduce access to excellent infrastructure by giving away access easements that people have already agreed to as a condition of constructing their homes. Not to mention that other homeowners might be encouraged to petition for removal easements, citing this precedent, as you heard earlier. And it wasn't that apparent that sufficient consideration was given to the impacts, and that's part of the reason I'm here tonight, to make sure that at least I'm heard on this. And I'm part of the 80% of residents which wish for more access and connectivity and trails in our community. So thank you very much for considering my perspective, and I urge you to do the right thing for our community and vote no on closing the path between Lozano Lane and Regner Creek Trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Dino. Our next speaker is Helene Davis. Welcome, Helene.
Okay.
Helene, I think you might have unmuted and then muted yourself.
You're right, I did. Good catch. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Paul and Cupertino Council members. I'm Helene Davis, a longtime Cupertino resident and a former Parks and Recreation Commissioner. I'm here to ask you to vote no on closing the Lozano Lane path and to not bring it up again for review. When you consider your vote, please keep in mind the needs of the community over the perceived concerns of, in this case, a very few. This path was already open and has been in use for 20 years. The homeowners have known about this easement and its eventual connection to the Regnart Creek Trail since they purchased their homes. Every homeowner signed their acknowledgement of the trail easement. I was on the Parks and Recreation Committee during the development of the Parks and Recreation Master Plan. Connectivity to our public trails and our civic spaces was a top priority for our citizens. I have to say I was surprised when I read staff's report and their recommendation that the easement be vacated for free. To do so would set a terrible precedent in our community. Thank you for your consideration.
Thank you very much, Helene. Next speaker is John Zhu. Welcome, John.
Hello. My name is John Zhu. I am the living Cupertino, Lozano Land. Thank you to Mayor Darcy and the city manager and the member of the city council for giving me the opportunity to speak. Earlier today, I sent a picture to the city I'd like to share for when I speak. The PDF name is item 10, Public Walkway JZ. Can you please show the picture? Great, yeah, that's the one. Thank you. The picture shows the walkway in red dotted line. I overlay a car accident picture on top of it to indicate the location. As you can see, the accident happened on the walkway access point. In fact, the car literally hit the walkway entrance pillar. This accident happened a few years ago. The road Rodriguez is quite deceivable at this spot. Because of the road curvature, driver often didn't anticipate or realize the situation at the corner and are too late to respond. If you've ever tried to drive on this road, you will know what I'm talking about. It's not rare that I often hear those angry car honking near that place. So far, the walkway is lightly used. However, if it becomes a trailhead, the probability of tragedy will go up. The walkway is not planned as trailhead. We never heard that this is a trailhead. And also, in fact, the walkway, the ownership is the HOA, it's not the city. The city is just the use of it. It's the ownership of the walkway is the HOA. On the map, you can see just a few hundred feet away on the west, there is a very safe trail access point. So in light of these facts, I request that you consider the plan to make the trail fence all the way and leave no opening on the walkway. I urge you to vote yes. I greatly appreciated you taking the time to hear me. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John. Our next speaker is Yano Banks. Welcome.
Sorry, I needed to unmute. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, my name is Yano Banks, and Mayor, you pronounced my name perfectly.
Great.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Lamar Court. My family and I have lived in Cupertino for 24 years. We border the existing wonderful section of the Regnart Creek Trail nearest to Creekside Park's beautiful bridge. This park, this walkway, have been an incredible asset to our property and property value. We are thrilled to live along this trail. My family and I are huge supporters, as you can imagine, of the Regnart Creek Trail and its expansion. I urge you to vote no on this item. I am incredulous that this or any item on this project is on the agenda again, let alone for a vote. This project has been approved so many times, I can't even count them anymore. The council has been incredibly accommodating to all residents who border this wonderful community-enhancing trail. You have done more than enough. What's more, this proposal just makes no sense. It blocks a key path along the trail, interrupting the enjoyment for all for the accommodation of maybe 2 homeowners? That's not community. Also, the easement has been in place and lawfully disclosed to all homeowners in the small Lozano development. They chose to buy those houses with this easement clearly identified. Changing the rules now is simply unfair to the rest of Cupertino. I ask you, council members, who do you represent? 2 homeowners or the other 60,000+ in our wonderful city? Please, do the right thing. Vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Yano. Our next speaker is Gary Vershup. Welcome, Gary.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome. Although you might want to turn the volume down on your other device because there's a little bit of an echo.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay. Mayor Paul and council members, thank you for letting me speak on this. I am a longtime resident of Cupertino. I live on Stendhal Lane. I am very excited, as others are, to have this Regnart Trail being started. And I keep watching the progress. I'm looking forward to being able to use it. My wife and I often would walk around and use that easement when we go around to the library or city hall, when we would walk and drop off our ballots. And I find it hard to believe that you're considering actually granting an easement, removing the easement, I mean, on Lozano Lane. And let me see. Sorry, I can hear that echo. I'm trying to get rid of it. We are very unhappy with the concept. We can't understand how you could consider giving away an access that we keep trying to get more of rather than less of in our city. As others have said, these people have already signed agreements saying that the easement will be there. It's been there for 20 years. And the concept of just letting a few residents get a closed off area and hurt the rest of the city is just beyond me. I'm really, really hoping you vote no on this. And I hope I never have to worry about council meetings at midnight or whatever related to the Regnart Trail again. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary. Our next speaker is Seema Linskog. Welcome, Seema.
Hi there. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi. Kristen, thank you for putting up my slide. Respected Mayor Paul, Vice Mayor Chow, and council members, I'm speaking here today, like the other residents before me, to urge you to keep open the Lozano Lane access path to the Regnart Creek Trail. And you can see here similar easements in Cupertino that have actually, some of them go along close to more homes, like 3 or 4 homes, that have been open for decades, that have been used daily with 0 complaints. And this is just a sampling of them. I'm sure there are more if I spent a little bit more time looking for them. So closing this access path is premature. The Regnart Creek Trail is not even open yet, and there is 0 data with which to justify a decision like this. We don't know how many people are going to use this access path. We don't know how many people will cross the road and where. We don't know, staff hasn't even completed an exploration of a possible crosswalk solution on Rodriguez. There is 0 data on which to base this kind of decision. Closing this access path is also legally reckless. It will have far-reaching implications for the dozens of similar access paths shown here all around the city. If you close this path, residents adjacent to all these other paths will now have a legal precedent to rely upon to demand that the paths near their homes be closed as well, impacting the quality of life of thousands of Cupertino residents. Closing this path is also fiscally irresponsible. It's not fiscally responsible to gift land of approximately $1 million in value to 8 private homeowners, and very hard to justify treating these 8 homeowners differently than the homeowners adjacent to all these other easements around the city. And honestly, closing this access path looks like favoritism. Giving this $1 million value land to the HOA to create their own private little park using city land would be a failure on the council's part to be faithful stewards of our shared city resources. Gifting the HOA an additional $4,368 to cover the cost of the permit really increases the appearance of inappropriate favoritism. Again, no study was done by city staff, no data has been collected, no justification given beyond vague fears about perceived safety. Is this how the city is going to make decisions that impact thousands of residents moving forward? Is this going to be our new process? I also want to address a comment by Chad Mosley about jaywalking. Crossing Rodriguez, that spot, is not actually legally jaywalking. I looked up California law on this. It states that it's considered jaywalking only if there's an adjoining intersection controlled by a traffic signal device, like a traffic light. Then a pedestrian cannot cross the road at a place except within a crosswalk. And by controlled, they mean a signal that's in operation that indicates when a pedestrian may cross or not cross the street by having a flashing signal like walk or don't walk, or a green walking man, or something like that. Then there is no traffic signal at Torrey and Rodriguez. There's no traffic signal
3 minutes.
at Blaney and Rodriguez.
Okay, our next speaker is Kevin Liu. Welcome, Kevin.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
I'm sorry. Okay. Yeah. Thank you for having me to talk. I think this is a question of a balance of addressing the affected neighbors' concerns and also the negative impact on the people using the trail. Okay. The city council, I remember very vividly when they approved this trail, they want to take care of the concerns. Just ask yourselves, by having this open, is it going to mitigate the concerns or make it worse? Because right now, the small community is encircled by people not belonging to this area, right? And so this is the answer to this is, okay, obviously you're not addressing the concerns because you promised to address the concerns. Second, the negative impact by closing this one. If you look at the map, only 500 feet away to the west side, there's a much bigger access point. And somebody just mentioned that they want to go closer, to be closer to the library. That access is even closer to the library. So what he's talking about, okay? So, and also to the right side, okay, there is actually 2 access points now because you did not put up the fence along the Lamar. So people can access it from Blaney and also the Lamar. And from Torrey to Blaney, it only takes about 3 to 4 minutes to walk. 3 to 4 minutes to walk. The distance is about 15 to 1600 feet. People love nature. Just take a few minutes walk along the trail. Is that big enough? Actually, if you split, it's only about 2 minutes walk each way to access the alternative access points, which are much wider, right? I'm very glad that Hongwei mentioned that he attended gatherings of empathy and sympathy. This is a classic example of empathy and sympathy. We are deeply negatively affected by this trail already, okay? So I really hope that you guys make the right choice. It's not difficult because the impact to the trail users are very minimal because there are alternative access points. And there's 0 cost because you can leverage the existing materials just to extend 10 feet, right? It's like, Russia, attacking Ukraine. These people, they don't know what they're talking about. Thank you.
Thank you, Kevin. Our next speaker is Jennifer Sheeran. Welcome, Jennifer.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Oh, great. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council members. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak today. As a longtime advocate for walking and biking at Cupertino, I was surprised to see this agenda item come up when all the access paths to the Regnart Trail had been decided in a vote a year and a half ago. As you've heard from the enormous amount of emails you've received, over 80 residents by my counting, this access path should not be closed. This is a vital path for the residents of Waterfall and Biltmore to use to reach the library or Eaton Elementary. One argument may be that a crossing is needed. And I agree, a crossing would be helpful and have other benefits of slowing traffic. However, today on Rodriguez, you see many people crossing it at all day long. And I do use Rodriguez a lot. I ride my bike to the library. I use it as a way to bike to Target, things like that. So I use it. These residents are not jaywalking. I think Seema mentioned that earlier. California law is very clear on that. And there have not actually been any incidents with people crossing Rodriguez right now. This issue should not force a closure, even temporarily. Another argument may be that this opening may not be necessary, as there's other entrances to the Regnart Trail close enough for people to use those instead. We all know that asking someone to backtrack hundreds of yards to reach a trail, 3 or 4 minutes, especially for someone possibly trying to make it to school, is not going to encourage use of. The closest alternative entrance doesn't even mitigate the crossing issue. People will still cross Rodriguez, just farther west. I urge you tonight to not close this access path by following your city goals of connectivity and the desires of 80% of your residents who wish for more trails and connecting paths. You've heard from many of us, and we are asking you to keep it open. Thank you.
Thank you, Jennifer. Our next speaker is Connie Cunningham. Welcome, Connie.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, good, dear Mayor, Vice Mayor, and council members. As a senior bicyclist whose opportunities for outdoor exercise are limited, these protected bike lanes offer exercise and access to the outdoors and opportunity to go places without driving a car throughout the city. I've been very excited about the pedestrian and bike plan ever since I first heard about it and have been following it very closely. I urge you to vote no on this particular item. This access path has been used since the Lozano and De Palma condominiums were built, as you've heard many times tonight, almost 20 years ago. Every homeowner in the HOAs nearby signed an agreement when they purchased their homes stating that there would be a path. Cupertino has similar easements, including one in my neighborhood, that people use to get from point A to point B through a neighborhood. And I agree with the speakers who have said that taking it out now would set a bad precedent. The City Council has agreed in its master plans that Cupertino would encourage more connectivity in the city. And residents have overwhelmingly agreed with this. And I've been at many meetings where people have spoken out in favor of Regnart Creek Trail, including the ones where then it was approved after all of the talking was completed. Making this change goes against those wishes and the city's stated goals. I could also talk about the specific needs of residents at Waterfall condominiums and the Biltmore apartments as well. And if a crosswalk turns out to be needed, it can be added. So please, thank you for listening to all of us. And please, I urge you, do not close the access path to the Regnart Creek Trail along Lozano Lane. Thank you.
Thank you, Connie. Our next speaker is Juliet Sheeran. Welcome, Juliet.
Good evening, council members.
Good evening.
I'm speaking today not only as a longtime bicycle pedestrian advocate, but as a high school representative for safe routes to school. One of the most important things for me is ensuring that teenagers and really students of all ages have safe, walkable, bikeable ways to get to school. And one of the many positives of the Regnart Creek Trail is that it will improve that connectivity and allow more students to walk and bike to school. Many high schoolers, many elementary school students live in the Biltmore apartments and Waterfall condominiums. They would actively benefit from the safer commute that the Lozano Lane path would offer them. I know that when I went to Eden Elementary School, would have made use of this path to get to the Cupertino Library more easily. An enormous number of residents support increasing the number of trails and paths in the city, and I count myself among them, partially because of how they make it easier for our children to learn good biking, good walking, good sustainable transport methods that they can take with them throughout the rest of their lives. This may feel like just one easement, but it represents more than that. By allowing this easement to remain open, it's a commitment to making sure that all of the many students of our city can access our city resources, the city library, the civic center, and can get safely to schools. This is something that I feel incredibly passionately about, and so I urge you to vote no on giving the Lozano Lane easement to homeowners. I hope that we as a city can move towards a more connected, equitable, and sustainable future for everyone, for our students, one step, one easement at a time. Thank you.
Thank you, Juliet. Our next speaker is Stella. Welcome, Stella.
Oh, hello, is it me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. Dear council members, during my talk, I will refer to some pictures in the 7-page slides I emailed you earlier. Okay, number one, I need to clarify this. This easement is a property of a Lozano HOA, never a gift granted by the city. Our homeowners.
Right, we are supposed to see.
Oh, right now I don't. I give you. I email you the slides before. Every of you. So I'll refer to right now. I do not refer to those. Just the pictures I will refer later. Okay. Our homeowners have never signed any document which mentions for future trail use. Whoever purposely spreading the untrue news on Cupertino matters have ruined our names. Please formally correct those at the same place and apologize to us. This easement was designed in 2002 to provide sole connectivity to the creek from Rodriguez Road for utility servicing, mainly creek servicing, along with pedestrian pathway. This is because other connections to this creek point were all blocked with fences by the city. When these fences are now removed, this easement is actually redundant. Number two, when this easement was initially built, the level of the entries was expected to be very low. So it is narrow, closely surrounded by light posts, parked cars, and many plants. Please see page 6 of my slides. But once this path is used as a trailhead, the level of entry will definitely overwhelm our small HOA. We, not the city, are paying for all the maintenance of this private land. We cannot afford unpredicted liabilities and maintenance needs in a long run. Trailheads should not be running inside a private properties. And 3, safety is another concern, especially for young students. Please refer to page 5 of my slides. This is the same thing as John just show. There is no pedestrian crossway near Lozano entrance. Visibility is very poor. I do not want to repeat what John says. Let's move to number 4. Several safer and wider trailheads are available just minutes away on public lands. Maintenance, repairs, and revisions on public lands are much easier to prevent future safety and legal concerns. So please vote for closing this easement. Thank you.
Thank you, Stella. Our next speaker is Jean Bedord. Welcome, Jean.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and council members. My name is Jean Bedord, and I am a longtime resident. And I will provide a counter argument. I am here to ask why the city of Cupertino is considering granting a private park to the Lozano Lane Homeowners Association. This private park would close off a city-owned public easement to the taxpayer-funded $5 million Regnart Creek Trail that will open later this year. This would create a private park for the use of just eight, residences in the park-deficient east side of Cupertino. I've walked this path, and it is a nice amenity for the entire community. Why should it be blocked off for the exclusive use of 8 homeowners who knew about the path when they purchased their homes? Admittedly, there may be a safety issue because there's no crosswalk to access this path, but it's quite solvable, as proven by our very capable Public Works Department at the McClellan Ranch crossing. However, this report does not address traffic safety, just perceived owner safety. There is no data on usage of the path or incidents that have occurred, just the desire of this HOA to have its own private park. I urge you to vote no on this resolution and to direct staff to address the traffic issues after the Regnart Creek Trail has been open for at least 6 months. Please do not set a precedent of creating private parks in the city. Thank you.
Thank you, Jean. Our next speaker is Xin Si. Welcome, Xin Si.
Okay, all right. Mayor Paul and dear council members and dear community members, actually, everyone. I really appreciate that everyone here is taking their time to participate in this discussion. I'm a resident at Campo di Lozano. I'm asking the council members, please consider not to open access to the Regnart Trail for this walkway in this easement. First of all, I actually want to say that I'm 100% supportive of a more walking and biking friendly community. Just the same as a lot of passionate people here. Me, myself, actually bike to school, from elementary school to graduate school, all the way over 2 decades. It's great to see the positive changes and that have happened in Cupertino. Safer pedestrian walks and bike lanes added. I think those are fantastic. The point I want to make here is that safety should be the #1 priority. We should plan well and set up our infrastructure to provide convenience and connectivity, but with safety in mind, right? Safety should be #1. So this walkway in this easement, and I admit there is utility in terms of convenience and connectivity, but this convenience comes at a great cost of safety risk. As some of you already mentioned, it increases the probability of pedestrian crossing Rodriguez without using the crosswalk, right? Whether it's jaywalk or not, the risk is there and it's increased. And human behaviors are predictable. And #2, the north end of the pathway is that kind of like the most dangerous spot along Rodriguez between the library and Bernani, right? So the curvature of the road is pretty terrible, and the visibility of the westbound incoming traffic when you come into this walkway is very difficult to see incoming traffic, and a traffic accident picture actually shows that. Right? These 2 points combined, you can already see that there will be an increase in pedestrian and cyclist collisions. And statistics and probability work, right? Trust me, that works. So the City of Cupertino Pedestrian Transportation Plan published in 2018 reports that 16% of pedestrian injuries happens when the pedestrian is not in a crosswalk while crossing. 16%, that's 1 in 6, right? So someone will get hit. Hope it will not be you or me or your child or my child, but someone will get hit, and that would be someone's child, right? And I don't think we should wait until that happens when we have data to address this problem. So if we want to encourage people to use Regnart Trail properly, I think we should guide them using the proper behavior, right? Like using the well-constructed pathway or entrance on the west side, on the east side, on the library side, on the Bernani side. So please do this in the right way, and please close unsafe access from this walkway to the Regnart Trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Xin Si. Our next speaker is Tagi Sadati. Welcome, Tagi.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council. Thank you for your service. I urge you to vote no on this item. at this time it's premature to approve it because the trail, as one of the speakers stated, the trail is not even open. A lot of people are talking about safety concern, as was in the report. We don't have that data. I recall when we were many years ago, I was on Planning Commission, and people who lived next to the Mary Avenue Don Burnett Bridge, they came and spoke against putting a trail there. Their concern was safety. It's been built many, many years gone by. I bike there 2-3 times a week at least. There hasn't been any safety issues. So it's premature. I urge you to put the benefit of the community as a whole versus the benefit of the few. If in future there are safety issues come up that cannot be addressed by the city, then this item can be revisited. But at this time, it's premature and it's unjust to approve it. Please vote no. Thank you.
Thank you, Tagi. Our next speaker is Christina Young. Welcome, Christina.
Good job.
Oh, thank you.
Hi, Mayor and council members. My name is Christina. I'm a homeowner living in Lozano Lane, adjacent to the Lozano easement. When I purchased the home, I signed a CCNR that agrees to existing 10-feet easement used as a walk pathway during daylight hours. This term was dated in 2002, almost 20 years ago, where the easement served as a connection of De Palma Lane to Rodriguez Avenue. I appreciate that we have a large group of cycling enthusiasts in Cupertino, and I'm one of them, but unfortunately, cycling is not allowed on the easement per the terms of the original easement agreement. We have noticed a high number of cases of misuses of the easement, and our homeowner association is bearing the financial consequences of the misuse solely. All other audience attending this hearing are not paying for it. When looking into the documents for the new Regnar Creek Trail, including the feasibility studies, Lozano easement was not identified as a trailhead, primary or secondary, for the new project, nor is it equipped with appropriate infrastructure to safely accommodate users crossing Rodriguez to enter the easement, which our community members have made numerous observations of dangerous crossings on Rodriguez. And many of you know the Rodriguez has a sharp curve where cars have low visibility into the pedestrians crossing the road, entering the easement when they drive into the curve. The planned trailheads, on the other hand, have the appropriate infrastructure, the pavement, high visibility crossroads, wayfinding signs, traffic signaling, all the other features that facilitate the hikers to enter the trail. It seems like the city has made a great investment into ensuring pedestrian safety. So why don't we guide people to use the high quality trailhead entrances and close off Lozano easement to avoid this loophole for uncontrolled pedestrian crossings? In addition, I don't believe the necessity of the easement is the same as 20 years ago when the project has added official trailheads on Rodriguez Avenue, only 2-minute walk from the easement, as well as on a Benelli Avenue, which is equipped with more appropriate infrastructure for hikers to ingress and egress. Practically speaking, the Lozano easement is no longer needed to serve as a connectivity point of Rodriguez Avenue and De Palma Lane. The previous statement from a previous community member not recognizing the danger of crossing Rodriguez worries me even more on the misuse of the easement as an access point. I urge you all to vote yes to ensure all users can use this new trail safely and happily in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Christina. Our next speaker is Lily Coban. Welcome, Lily. Lily, you'll need to unmute your microphone.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Hi. Sorry, I'm Lily, and I'm living right in front of the trail, and that pathway is so narrow. I have a tricycle myself, and if somebody wanna ride a bike and
coming, one going, and pedestrian. That is very narrow, and definitely is going to be some accident over there. And there is no need for it. If people exercise, they want to exercise in that trail, they can go 4 minutes, 2 minutes further. And we don't see much any people like children going to school from this way. But I kind of don't like it. It is okay. We are 8 residents here. First of all, we didn't sign for a trail or giving away anything. We just signed for a short, small pathway for few neighbors to pass. Now, thanks to other residents, they make us look like a criminal, 8 homeowner criminal we are here. We are only looking at our safety and security for ourselves. I'm a senior citizen and others also. So my husband also. We just want to this pathway be closed. So not everybody has a good intention when they are walking from here. There are lots of criminal things going on also. So when the road pathway is open, it's much easier to come to our property. And we don't have a park, as that lady said. It's just a parking lot with some grass on it. It's not a park. And that pathway, it doesn't worth $1 million. It's not. I don't know what kind of thing they are saying that. Please vote yes and close that little tiny narrow pathway. They can go to the library from the other way or from Blake. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. Our next speaker, I believe, is on the phone and it's designated caller 8761. If you are on the phone, you will need to push *6 on your phone to be unmuted. Welcome. That's caller 8761.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. Hi. My name is. Thanks. My name is Vivian. Thanks, council member and all the by community members and the Cupertino citizen for today's meeting. Again, my name is Vivian. I live on Lozano Link, and then I'm very proud Cupertino citizen. Unfortunately, I feel being attacked in this meeting, being portrayed as selfish and also greedy HOA owner. But I wanted to point out based on facts and not assumptions as well as exaggerated statements, because I heard some of those statements being repeated many times throughout this call. So let me kind of stay on the facts. First, there are additional primary and secondary access points to this new project, which did not exist before. So connectivity and access point to the new trail actually indeed increased versus before. So also, the easement, the original easement was not planned as a trailhead, and the easement is for pedestrian pathway, not a bikeway. So these are all facts and not opinion. Second of all, when I wanted to, if you remember the map, not only, there's a slope, around the corner, low visibility, as well as, I think somebody mentioned it's not jaywalking. It's worse than jaywalking because there's no flashlight, no stop sign to warn people to slow down and watch the surrounding. Actually, it's more dangerous than when there's a stop sign and people jaywalking, because at least there's a stop sign, at least there's some flashlight, and at least people know that they should slow down. Also, I want to point out something that I didn't mention before. This pathway directly faces the major entrance of Billmore. There's a lot of cars in and out through the parking from Billmore. It just really had to have. So I want to point out that not all easements are the same. It's a very location-based and unique situation. Here, the pathway really go head to head with the car in and out from the entrance point towards the apartment. I also wanted to point out that, just 1 second. I also wanted to point out the original easement. Does not include nighttime usage, not include high-level traffic, and all this will be definitely increased from this point of time. So I also wanted to mention that we should not be portrayed as selfish and greedy HOA. In fact, in all this past year, 8 units of family bear all the costs for maintenance.
Thank you, Vivian. That is your time. And so we will go on to Eric Lindskog. Welcome, Eric.
Good evening, Mayor Paul and City Council members. I'm a Cupertino resident. I'm also a member of the city's Bike Ped Commission, although I'm speaking here as myself. So the city has spent a fair bit of money, and we all spent a fair bit of time on developing the Regnar Creek Trail. As such, we should have as much access to the trail as possible, and not less. If anything, we need more access to our parks and trails. And I would say that the argument that we shouldn't have this walk path there because it happens to, intersect essentially with the street is flawed, because trails and paths that don't run along roads, they by their nature will intersect with roads for motor vehicles where there's not a road. So that's not a reason to close these paths and trails. If that was the reason, we need to close a whole lot of paths and trails. It simply doesn't make any sense. So I would say there's absolutely no reason why we should close this path. We definitely need to keep it open so we have access to the Regnar Creek Trail here. And I urge the City Council to vote no to closing this path. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. Our next speaker is Janet Van Zoren. Welcome, Janet.
Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Oh, hello, Mayor Paul and City Council members. I've heard a lot of comments today about closing or not closing this trail. I definitely think that it should not be closed. I feel that the homeowners, when they purchased their homes, that there was an intent there for this little path to connect to the trail, and that a bigger trail would be built. I've already heard many statements, as have you, in favor of keeping the trail open. So I'll try to keep this short and just say that I really agree with most of what has been said there. And as far as the safety part is concerned, it seems to me that if issues come up after the trail is open, they can be addressed. Crosswalks could be put in. If necessary, this could become a footpath only trail, things like that. Those things can be handled, but I don't think we should close this.
Janet, I think you might have muted yourself inadvertently.
Yes, I was done.
Okay, great. Thanks very much, Janet. Our next and final speaker is Stephen Scharf. Welcome, Stephen.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Can you hear me?
Yes, welcome.
Hi, I'm Steve Sharp. I'm chair of the Cupertino Planning Commission, but speaking only for myself. First I'd like to point out that this public walkway access is nothing like Russia attacking Ukraine. That was really uncalled for. There's no reason that the city should give up this easement for this walking path. As some of these owners pointed out, it's not supposed to be used by bicycles. There should be a sign to that effect. There is no sign there now. This is a public walkway. It benefits Cupertino residents. How many more times is the Regnar Creek Trail going to be on the council agenda? Residents advocated for this easement when the housing project was built back in 2002 to 2003. The easement was agreed to by the developer when the city council approved the project, thanks to the advocacy by residents at the time. So last evening, I went over to Rodriguez by the entrance to the path around 5:15 p.m. There were a lot of residents walking across Rodriguez mid-block despite the lack of a crosswalk. And as other speakers have explained, crossing a street mid-block between non-signal intersections is not jaywalking and is not illegal. And it was disappointing to hear that term used improperly by the city engineer. And during council discussion, I would urge council members to use the accurate verbiage regarding this. Safety should be the #1 priority. An activated lighted crosswalk should be installed by the entrance to this public walkway. These do have some cost, but it would be money well spent to encourage safer street crossings, since people are now just crossing at random locations. The path was put in so when the trail was eventually completed, there would be access for residents living in the housing along Rodriguez. It's not used much now, but once the trail is open, it will likely be used by a lot more residents, including students. People walking at Creekside Park or Cupertino High School would have to backtrack about 600 feet to get to the entrance. They'd not want to add a quarter-mile round trip to their walk. It doesn't seem like a huge distance, but it would be enough to prevent residents from accessing the path and instead walking along Rodriguez up to Blaney. We want to encourage residents to walk and cycle when possible and reduce dependence on motor vehicles. Yesterday, I also went along the path from the trail to Rodriguez. The pavement is in poor condition. It should be repaved immediately so there's no trip and falls. The council needs to consider the needs of all residents. It's residents that benefit from this path. Thank you. Vote no.
Thank you, Stephen. And that is our final public commenter. I'll just remind the people with their hands raised that we have the hands raised by the end of the first speaker on item, and so that concludes our public comments.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
I apologize for the interruption. I did just receive an email from a member of the public. I just wanted to ask if you would like me to read it, or is it beyond the cutoff?
What time is the email dated?
8:33 p.m.
So go ahead and add that to the written communications after the item. So I believe that the notice indicates when we take in the email communications, and so let me just double check that if you're not familiar directly with it.
Yes, that is correct. It is posted that email comments must be received during the times for public comment during the meeting to the city clerk.
Members of the public that wish to share a document must email prior to speaking for up to 3 minutes. I see. Okay, well, we'll adjust that to indicate a reasonable amount of time. I think probably within the first 10 minutes would be reasonable. But yeah, go ahead and add that to the public comments and written materials after the meeting. And if you like, you can go ahead and indicate whether this is in favor or against briefly for the email comment.
Yes, it was to deny any changes.
Okay, so against the, okay, well, let me bring it back to council, and I have Councilmember Moore's hand raised. I'll set us at an initial 3 minutes and see what the pleasure of the council is with regard to further questions and discussion is at that time. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. Okay, so I'm looking at the agenda packet, the information that we have, and a couple of things bother me from the report. So more information that I would like is we're not seeing an entire kind of like a satellite view showing all the way to Blaney and Torrey, I believe, are the two end streets with the crosswalk. So I would like to have that information. For the tract map, we were only given 1 page, sheet 3 of 3. I would want the complete document. And if there is a verbal written easement document, I want to see that with the actual language. I do see that it says 10-foot pedestrian pathway easement on the tract map. A couple of problems I have with the easement as I see it is that it has 2 jogs in it, which reduce the width of it down to 5.85 feet in one location and 6.51 in another. Also, when I look at where the path connects with Rodriguez, there is no ADA compliant ramp, and as it's been mentioned, there's no crosswalk there. Additionally, were you to head straight north after meeting up with Rodriguez from leaving that path, you are going to go into a driveway on the opposite side of the street. So if there is to be a crosswalk installed, it needs to be offset from that ramp. When we're talking about this bike path, we were not given any photos or data about the path and it's showing its actual width, its design layout. We know nothing about its ADA compliance. We don't know about sight distances for vehicles on Rodriguez. And now it's being raised that crossing Rodriguez is not illegal at the location. So I would like our city attorney to weigh in on that. So if pedestrians are allowed to cross randomly across Rodriguez now, we might want to be having some control of that pedestrian traffic. And I think that we should have had a little more highlighted that this is just a pedestrian path for this particular property. And I'm concerned also, and I'd like our city attorney and perhaps some engineers to weigh in, is this going to be an attractive nuisance? And will it require us to install a proper crosswalk with flashing lights? I'm curious for just some historical information. When was this path last open? It looks like it was to attach Rodriguez to La Palma, and the easement map appears to show that there was not a prior Regnart trail. I'd heard something about there being a Regnart trail open at one time. I'm wondering if that did exist. Could I hear a little bit about that history? And did this path project, the vacation issue, did this go to the Bike Ped Commission or to the Planning Commission, or are we it for who's getting to see about it? Okay, and that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Moore. So you're at a bit over 3 minutes. So let me do this. We'll go to the council members, and hopefully staff is tracking the questions raised and issues raised. I'll give staff an opportunity to feedback. So let me go through council for a 3-minute cycle. And next we have Councilmember Way.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. Actually, so I'm going to ask some questions. I think one of the questions Councilmember Moore already asked, this is pedestrian only access for originally when the agreement was made, when it was the original developer. That I want to confirm that. And second is, a couple residents actually said about open access for utilities. So is it just for pedestrian crossing, or there is use for utilities or something? So that's a little confusing whether it's just an access or actually it's for utilities too. If it's for utilities, it would be very not wise to give it away because it might have some extra use in the future. So I want to clear that. And also, I did walk the trail twice today, this morning, and then, back and forth, and went to both future openings and assessed the Rodriguez Road conditions. So I do believe that Councilmember Moore's question of how, for safety reasons, if we do want to keep the trail, how do we install flashing lights and things like so? I guess the staff can maybe can answer that in the future, maybe if not now. So these are what I have right now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Way. That was about 1.5 minutes. And so if you want staff to go ahead and, address that, that's fine. Or otherwise, just stop your clock if you want to. Okay, so I'll stop your clock. Let's go to Vice Mayor Chow. Vice Mayor Chow. I think you might be muted, Vice Mayor Chow.
Okay. So Here. So the orange shows the old trail. I think back in 2002 when there was a wall, and the trail is only from this the easement to Palma, I think. It's only that part is very short, and that's the only access point to the trail at that time. So I think it made sense at that time to require the easement. And at that time, Cupertino Library is not open yet. Library opens in 2004. So I'm curious, what's the number of estimated pedestrians using this easement back in 2002 compared with the anticipated number of residents who would use this trail with the new Rignot Creek Trail? And also my understanding is the HOA pays for the very nice landscaping and watering to keep the landscaping and the pavement and all the other landscaping features. So with the increased use, if there need to be more maintenance fee, who should pay for that? Are we requiring the HOA to continue to bear the cost of increased use? And then in case some accident happened on the easement, who is liable? Kids might be riding bikes and might be hitting a senior residents walking, which happened in Memorial Park. And who will be liable for that accident, the city or the HOA? And I have the same question regarding the crosswalk, because with this opening, I think it's true that in the feasibility study, this was not identified as a trailhead. The feasibility study identified some major trailhead, which are the red dots and the tiny red square there for secondary access, but it didn't identify this easement. And so we didn't know about this potential danger of people crossing the walk. If this path is left open, very likely tiny kids who will be rushing to go to school, to Eaton, or to Creekside Park, to Cupertino High. I welcome that they would use the trail. But then if they rush and cross the street and something accident happened, who will be liable? The city? And for this street, I visited there. This particular street, maybe because of the curve, but also because it's very wide, it's 40 feet wide, according to the city staff, much wider than other neighborhood street. So cars are driving faster. It's much faster than other street. And I looked at the other crossing for the feasibility study. This is on the left is East Estate, where we have
Vice Mayor, I did give Councilmember
the right is plenty. We also narrowed the road to make it safer.
So,
okay.
So you're at that point. Let me check in with Councilmember Willie to round off the first round of council comments and questions, and then I will bring it over to staff to answer some of the questions that have been posed by council in this first round. So Councilmember Willie.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So I do have a few questions. I think questions have already been pretty well laid out, but I do have a few. But I'd really like to start off, because to me, it's the most important thing is we need to listen to all the residents. Anyone who wants to tell us what their thoughts are, we're here to listen to them. And so whether they like the path or they don't like the path, I hope we all will respect everybody's opinion. People come from different directions and have different views. So that being said, my questions would be, some of which have already been raised. It's very hard for us to make essentially a forever decision without more of the details. And so in addition to the ones that have already been laid out, The speed, Vice Mayor brought up the speed on Rodriguez. I think we really should have city staff telling us on that road, is there currently a speed problem, or are people? There's always going to be an occasional person that's going to speed, but is it typically well driven, or is it typically a high speed route for people? Next one is, we did hear a resident thinking that the path was only for maintenance, but yet I'm also hearing that it was intended as a pedestrian only. And so I think we really do need to understand what the original agreement was, and that we don't expand what was not the original conveyance. The width of it, you know, I'm hearing 10 feet, 5.6 feet, 6.1 feet. Is it truly only for walking? And is that going to be maintained where we now will be having a very nice Ragnar Creek trail, for which I'm thinking kids and adults are going to be riding their bikes. And I think we can all appreciate that at many intersections, not everybody gets off their bike and walks across the intersection. They come down on many intersections and just ride right through. So if the path is truly only 5-6 feet, does that present a safety issue? Do there need to be signs indicating that this is a walking path, only must walk your bike? I mean, we definitely don't want pedestrians, especially with children, getting knocked down by bicycle. I do feel we really want connectivity in Cupertino, but I do think we need to make sure that the questions, the details are all put in front of us so that we can support the best decision for the community. I think, yeah, I think that pretty much covers it, but I would also echo, I really think we needed a couple photographs, you know, standing on the sidewalk and standing on the trail, looking in, so that we can truly visualize, is this a safety concern area or physical safety concern area? Because there's also maybe a crime safety type concern. So I'll leave it at that.
Okay. Well, thank you, Councilmember
Yep.
Willie. Let's go to staff, and let me start with Chad. Chad, if you could address the questions that were posed by council, and then I'll go to our city attorney, Chris. And if anyone else from staff would like to provide some input, please feel free to do so. And you can raise your hand if you have some input points there. But let's go to Chad. Welcome back.
Yeah, I'll start with some of Councilmember Moore's questions. She had requested that we provide an aerial from Torrey to Blaney. I did not provide a full aerial of the whole block. You can pull aerials from Google Maps, or we do have our property information, but this is the full aerial from Torrey to Blaney. And the walkway is approximately halfway between this block. She had also requested information regarding the track map. That's fairly easily provided. We had provided page 3. Page 1 of the track map does discuss the easements. And it states here, we also hereby dedicate to the city of Cupertino an easement for pedestrian pathway purposes as shown over lot 1. So the easement is for pedestrian pathways. There was discussion about utilities. Lot 1 does have a public service easement over it, which typically facilitates utilities. That would also include this area within the 10-foot pedestrian pathway. The connection to Rodriguez does not have a ramp at this point in time. A ramp would insinuate or promote people walking into the streets. So there is no ramp there for at this point in time. This did not go to the Bike and Ped Commission. This was requested to come straight to City Council, and we have done that. And when this was originally installed, the pathway, the walkway came down to Regnart Creek, and the pathway continued along Regnart Creek until it reached De Palma Lane. And that was kind of the original concept of the Regnart Creek Trail. I don't think it was officially designated the Regnart Creek Trail, but it was officially a trail at that point in time. Councilmember Way asked about pedestrian only access. Again, the easement is the only place where pedestrian access is public pedestrian access is permitted. But yes, there are public utility easements also within this area. If you vacated the pedestrian access easement tonight, you would not be vacating the public service easement for the utilities. With respect to a crosswalk along Rodriguez, staff believes that we can facilitate getting a crosswalk installed in there. The crosswalk would not be directly at the end of the path because, as was stated by Councilmember Moore, that would lead straight to a driveway on the opposite side. And additionally, we don't believe there's enough sight lines to facilitate a crosswalk there. The crosswalk, we believe we could get a crosswalk that meets highway design standards by situating it about 65 feet west of where that walkway hits the sidewalk. We need to do further evaluation of that, but we believe that's quite possible. With that stated, I'm not necessarily sure I recommend it. As stated, this is on a curve. It's never a good idea to put crosswalks on a curve. So we could probably meet the necessary safety requirements as established by the highway design manual. With that stated, there's kind of a common sense aspect. It's not necessarily the greatest idea to put it on a curve. Doesn't mean we couldn't provide adequate sight lines to ensure that, but we typically try not to recommend placing crosswalks on curbs. Councilmember Chow had requested the number of estimated pedestrians in 2002 compared to now. I do not have that information. I'm not sure that we have information from pedestrian use from 2002. Maintenance is currently performed by the Homeowners Association, and I believe that would continue as we proceed into the future. The easement language does not indicate that the city has even the right to maintain. It basically provides pedestrian access only. With respect to the liability question, I would defer to our city attorney on that. With respect to this pathway, it was never considered a trailhead. Staff did not recommend it as a trailhead. It's simply a pedestrian connection. So when you look at the feasibility study, it doesn't show it as a trailhead because we didn't intend it to be a trailhead. We didn't intend to advertise this as a trailhead. We just intended to keep it as an access option. Speed along Rodriguez Avenue is 25 miles per hour. We don't believe there's a speeding problem, but just out of perception, I do notice that some people go above the speed limit. When I did look at the pedestrian crossing with sight lines, I anticipated a speed limit of 35 miles an hour just to provide a little additional conservative safety measures there. Again, I think we can get a pedestrian crosswalk that meets those site guidelines for 35 mile per hour speed limits. The original agreement wasn't necessarily an agreement as stated in the track map. It was strictly an easement for pedestrian access. And the width of the existing pathway is only about 4.5 feet, maybe 5. It was, again, intended strictly for pedestrian use, not for bicycle use. We could place a sign at Rodriguez and again at the trail indicating dismount bikes and walk your bikes. That would not be an issue. And those were the questions I took down. I don't know if I missed any others.
Okay, well, thank you, Chad. Let me go on to Chris Jensen, our city attorney now. There were there's at least one legal question raised, Chris. Did you want to speak to that? I think it was about the issue of jaywalking, and I think perhaps there was another one. But yeah, Chris.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, there were a couple of questions. So the jaywalking issue, it's crossing the street at this location would not be a violation of the vehicle code, generally, because the adjacent intersections aren't signalized. The pedestrian would have to yield to traffic in that situation, but it's not necessarily a violation of the vehicle code to cross the street. And I mean, I think perhaps the more significant question is whether it's safe to cross the street at this location, and this is an unsignalized area. It is a non-major street. It's fairly routine in the city to have uncontrolled crossings in this kind of area, and so it becomes a question of really traffic design and engineering judgment as to whether it's safe here, and that is the same, and that question kind of to a certain extent at least informs the related question about any liability. The city has protection from liability if the design of a public facility is safe and reasonable, and so so that's something that we would look at, and we would defer to the professional judgment of our public works department and standards like the highway design manual that Chad cited in his discussion. As far as liability, if an accident were to occur within the easement, that's not necessarily a straightforward discussion. The fact that the property owners maintain the easement, I think, reduces the city's risk of liability to a certain extent. And there would also have to be, a dangerous condition of public property that the city knew about or should have known about. And so that would have to be something, most commonly, that's something like a raised sidewalk, something like that. And it's not, it has to be something out of the ordinary to give rise to liability. That said, anytime there is an accident in a public right-of-way, which this is at this time, there is a potential risk for the city to become involved in a claim arising from that accident.
Okay, thank you, Chris. Let's go to, I think Councilmember Moore had her hand raised first, and then we'll go back to no. Okay, so let's go to Vice Mayor Chow and then Councilmember Moore. I'll continue the timers here. And so let's try for another 3 minutes with a half minute taken from there.
So why is it not a good idea to put a crosswalk on a curve?
I think maybe that's a question for Chad.
Yeah.
Mentioning it. Yeah.
So typically, with respect to curves, your sight lines are reduced because there's typically obstructions at the edge of the road. And additionally, drivers are attempting to maneuver the curve as opposed to in straightaways where they're just kind of keeping their car steady. With attempting to maneuver their the curve and potentially an obstruction like a pedestrian in the way, it just creates a more difficult situation for a driver to proceed.
That means without a crosswalk, it's even dangerous. It's even more dangerous because they'll be surprised by even a little kid on a bike riding through, right?
think if somebody jumped out in front of a car, they'd be surprised either way, whether there's a crosswalk or not.
But the way the curve is more dangerous, that's why they're meaning. That's okay. And I think there is some misconception from the public. The HOA does own the easement, right? Not the city. So whether vacating or not, no one is gifting anyone anything.
The land beneath the easement is owned in fee by the HOA, but the city has interest in the easement, and the easement was granted to the city.
Yeah, and HOA is still liable for paying for the maintenance fee and watering, which I think is about $2,000 a month, according to them, plus removal of litters and any pavement split. So it was increased usage, there might be increase in maintenance fee. So if there is an increase in maintenance fee because of the use, should city cover the increase? Since back in 2002, the old trail was not meant to be to even include access to library.
I think if the trail is used for pedestrian access, the maintenance of the pavement is not necessarily going to be increased substantially. The pavement should be of a thickness that should be able to withstand fairly regular pedestrian use, just like with any city sidewalk. Now, if you were driving heavy equipment on it, that would be a different story, would require additional increased maintenance.
Thank you, Chad. Thank you, Vice Mayor. Let me go on to Member Moore at this point in the interest of the timing of it.
One more point.
We can come back to you, Vice Mayor Chad, once we've had another round. Councilmember Moore.
Okay, thank you, Mayor Paul. So I would like, Chad, if you could pull up the Google Earth, drop a pin, and we can take a look at that path. You can see it from the street view pretty easly, so that we all have a good idea. Yeah, there you go. Okay, so so perhaps you can zoom in a little bit. I don't know, but it looks like it's kind of an asphalt path, a little bit rough surface. And when you look further down from the view which I had, it looks like the car is able to overhang part of the pathway as well. And did anyone happen to put a tape measure down on that path and get a look at what the width of it was? Yeah. So I think the car is able to come up to the curb and overhang part of the path. That's something that would need to be just double check. And the condition of the asphalt is not, it looks a little rough, right, at the edge of the back of the sidewalk. So you have what looks like there's a curb, but I don't know that there's a wheel stop for those vehicles before they get to the curb at the end of their parking spot. So that would be something. I just feel like there needs to be just a little bit more information here about the path, and I want to know what condition it's in right now, and that would help.
It does not appear that there's wheel stops, but I can't say that with 100% certainty based on the aerials.
Yeah. So the view I had looked like the car was overhanging the curb at the front. And so there is a possibility, depending on the shape of the vehicle, that it's going to kind of cut into your ADA requirements on the width. It's a possibility. So I just want to make sure about that. And then if I understand correctly, and perhaps Chris could talk about this one more time. So if there is, say there's a trip on that path, say that the asphalt gets rougher, we have some weather, who knows, too much traffic, someone has a trip, they fall, what's the city's liability there again?
Okay, well, sorry to hold that thought, Councilmember Moore. Let's go on to Councilmember Way.
And if you wouldn't mind, Mayor, I just want to state quickly that the width of the trail is between 4.5 and 5.5 feet, depending on where you're at the location where those cars pull up adjacent to the trail. It's about 5.5 feet there. And if a car were to overhang, let's say 2 feet, you would have 3.5 feet clear, which would still meet ADA width requirements.
Okay. Okay, thanks, Chad. Let's go on to Councilmember Way.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. So I want to follow with Council Member Moore's comments, and also because I did walk the trail and there were cars parking there, and I feel pretty safe walking on it, but the surface is rough. So actually that was my question. If more pedestrians, the trail opens, there will be more pedestrians. So according to my understanding, the homeowner association, because this is just an easement, they still own the property. And when we have easement, we all have easement in our properties. We have to maintain our yard and the condition of where we live. The easement belongs to the right to use for the city or for utilities. So my question is sort of the same, is, well, now the trail's open, there will be more pedestrian usage and probably more maintenance for the trails for that crossway. And the question is, who is maintaining it? So my presume is the homeowner association is. So can this be verified?
You are correct. It would be the homeowners association. The easement is strictly for public access. It does not provide for public maintenance. It does not reference public maintenance. If there were an unsafe situation, we would notify the HOA of the unsafe situation so that it could be remedied by them.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Councilmember Way. So Councilmember Way, just as a time check, that was your first 3 minutes, actually, so about 1.5 minutes on each. So at this point, Vice Mayor Chow, you have your hand raised. Let's go back for your follow-up comments here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I think every one of us is here for the residents. A lot of times an issue probably is of concern for only 1 or 2 or 3 residents. If we ignore them simply because they are a smaller number, we shouldn't serve on the council. So I think that's what we are here for. We shouldn't be ignoring an issue simply because a smaller number of residents will be affected. And I totally agree that there should not be any favoritism, such as the one given to the gates at Linda Vista Trail, which is an area that doesn't have such safety concerns. I still have not gotten an answer on who agreed to install the gates at Linda Vista Trail without notifying anyone, and allocated $9,000 a year ongoing to open and close the gates. That's a gift from the city annually. I do wish this kind of favoritism is disclosed to the public so that public is aware of the decision-making process and can weigh in, as we do tonight, in the future. And for this, pedestrian death is at a 30-year high. And then during the pandemic, with the reduction of traffic, in fact, the pedestrian death has increased by 21%. So people has the false impression that, oh, it's safe because I'm going to a trail. It's safe because there are less cars. Because that false perception, one split-second decision could get someone killed. And then if we wait and see, it will be too late when a fatal accident happens. Can we afford to wait and see? I think there are, if you live in an urban city, walking, biking, taking a longer route in order to reach your destination because there is no crosswalk, it's a common daily life. People should be used to that. There is no crosswalk. I take a few more steps so to use the crosswalk to cross. Cupertino is moving into a busier and urban city. People should be used to that. And there are access points to Regnat Creek Trail. This easement, I don't think we need to vacate, but I'm very concerned if we leave the entrance, the access point open, we are inviting more accidents. For when little kids are rushing to school, rushing to the library, they are talking, playing, and then running into the street. I think it's a matter of when an accident might happen. I'm really concerned.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. So let's go on to Councilmember Moore.
Thank you, Mayor Paul. I do want to mention that the Linda Vista Trail does have a flashing lighted crosswalk added at it. And I would personally, I'd like to see staff come back with the crosswalks mapped both with and without the Lozano Lane path. So because you have one of the entrance points is closer to City Hall, and which to me is the more obvious entrance point to the trail. And in my opinion, there ought to be a crosswalk near that location with the solar lights like were done at Linda Vista. There was a member of the public who showed a map indicating there were several other of these easements providing access to areas in the city. And I was wondering if you could take that information and come back to us. This would be my request. I don't know if the other council members agree with this, but bring that information back to us to let us know what those easements are like. I looked at the one at the head of Alderbrook, and it was very wide with a ramp up, protective bollards. You could easily bring a bicycle up and back through there, and it was not very close even to the residential homes. So I'd like to know a little bit about the others. If you find that that's an exercise that only probably 3 sample ones would be useful, beneficial to us, that's fine, but I'd like to know what those paths are like. I have been on one near the Linda Vista Trail that has the stairways. I believe that's a city-owned easement. And I am curious about it because that one really seems like a liability, but leave that to the attorney. So those are right now my 2 requests, and whether also are we going to be doing something, or does the city have a proposal for how you're going to keep bicycles from making that obvious turn onto that trail, a staggered entrance, just something, signage that's attractive for the people who live in that development. So what kind of protective measures are going to be provided? And I'll leave those requests there. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Moore. Let's go to Councilmember Willie.
So, just help me to understand where we're at in this. Are we actually deliberating now, or is this still questions and we went a second loop?
Well, we're basically through a third loop right now. Your time, you're through your second, time here. But I was going to take your comment and then propose a motion. But if you'd like me to propose that motion first, I'd be happy to do that.
So then we'll do technically then we would do the deliberations for where we're at after your motion.
Yes, I'd be happy to, share.
Yeah, let's do it that way then. Thank you.
Okay, sounds good. So here's my motion. My motion is that I move that council direct staff to place a pedestrian pathway, no cycling or similar sign on both sides of the Campo de Lozano pedestrian pathway easement, and return to council after gathering usage and safety data at this easement for 1 calendar year or earlier if needed, with recommendations based upon that data. And so that's my motion. Can I get a second for that? Councilmember Moore, your hand is raised. No, you're not. Oh, okay. So Councilmember Willie?
Yeah, I'll second that motion, and then we can come back and have a little bit of deliberation.
Okay, so please feel free to begin that. I stopped my screen share, and Councilmember Willie. My motion's on the table with a second by you, and so we'll go with your deliberation followed by Councilmember Moore.
Yeah. So in this instance, it's an existing path, as I see it, it's an existing path that has been open, has always had potential safety. I definitely am very concerned about safety, but we're not introducing a new, although somebody might argue about the number of people using it would, if it was twice as many people, then maybe it's twice as much of a safety possible. But at any rate, it's something that's been open. There are some concerns. And so with that, I would still be of the mind right now to keep it as a pedestrian only. You read my mind with the signage on both sides that it's a walkway. I'm really glad that we got to see the pictures because from those pictures, if I saw somebody walking and a bicycle trying to maneuver around them, it's probably going to be okay. If that person had a child walking beside them and then you have the bicycle, now I think you've exceeded the capacity. So the signage requirement, I think, does that. Allowing city staff to consider an actual signal crosswalk, or maybe it's just a painted crosswalk. I would, not being the traffic person, all I can do is say what my thoughts would be. I think when we all come to a yellow crosswalk, no matter where it is, whether it's at an intersection or mid block, we're going to be on the lookout that is a crossing point. And around schools, they actually put those little mini signs in the middle to indicate that it is a crossing point. So I think those could be, would it need to be signalized? I'd leave it for staff to come back. If it really was a safety issue and staff came back and said, you just don't have the visibility around the corner and there's really nothing that can be done to alleviate that sufficiently, then we could revisit that it's not a good crossing point. So, but for tonight, it is already a path that has been opened, is open, and I don't think anything has been done to compromise that significantly, in my view, at this point in time. When the trail's open, if there were long streams of people, it might be a different story, but I'm not seeing that tonight. So that's my deliberation. I hope that helps.
Okay, thank you, Councilmember Woolley. Next, we have Councilmember Moore.
Great, thank you, Mayor Paul. So this is a civil engineering issue, and in particular, it's a safety issue, and the path is currently not open. So it's my preference that we would ask staff to come back with the potential future crosswalks mapped both with and without Lozano Lane, letting us know how it will be a safe area for crossings. The current motion doesn't address how pedestrians will be safely allowed to cross. It just talks about essentially signage, which is great, but I would prefer that staff suggest the proper signage and safety precautions for the entrances on both ends of that trail, and come back with your best assessment of how that be done using your engineering judgment. And then I would also still like to have some information about the other trail crossings, which might be similar to what we are looking at here.
Okay, well, I'm absolutely open to a substitute motion. So rather than try to wordsmith what I think that you mean, I would suggest that you type up your own motion and bring it in as a substitute. Chad,
Well, okay. I moved staff come back with the crosswalks mapped with and without the Lozano Lane crossing, letting us know how to be a safe area for crossings, and have staff suggest the proper signage and safety precautions, and share information about 3 example other trail crossings within the city that have easements.
Yeah, no, I would recommend that you commit that to writing. So a lot of the times motions are easier to, kind of wordsmith if you're looking at what it actually says, as opposed to, kind of verbally giving it on the fly.
Well, I am reading my typed stuff, but I can.
Okay,
well,
then share, if you don't mind sharing it, please feel free to do that. Let me go to Chad. He has his hand raised. Did you have?
Yeah, I was gonna briefly state that I could put together an explanation for each of those easements that were indicated in that letter, and provide that to council. Not necessarily, I don't think we need to come back to a public meeting for that. I can provide it to you through a member of council. That way you can at least see that information. If you want to bring this item back and further discuss it and deliberate it, that's your choice. But I'm trying to see if I can't spare both you and the public with kind of hashing this out further. I could potentially even additionally do a little more investigation on sight lines for the crosswalks, both near the walkway as well as down by City Hall, as Councilmember Moore had suggested, and I can provide that in a memo to council also. I'm just giving that as an option, but I will do as you direct.
Mayor
Okay.
Paul, may I adjust my substitute motion then, because I'm really, with regards to the other easements and trail entrances, that's just extra information that I'd like to know, because I'm curious about what they all are and how they kind of came about, the history. I just find that really kind of fascinating. So going back, then I've trimmed my request down. So I'd like staff to come back with the crosswalks mapped, both with and without the Lozano Lane entrance, letting us know how it'll be a safe area for crossings, and have staff suggest proper signage and safety precautions for the trail.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, did you capture that motion? I just want to put it into proper language. I don't.
Yes, I believe I can read it back. So Councilmember Moore revised the motion for staff to come back with a crosswalks mapped both with and without the Lozano Lane entrance, letting council know how to be safe in the area for crossings, and have staff suggest proper signage and safety precautions for the trail.
The trail entrance. Okay.
And may I just ask one clarifying question? Do you want us to come back at a future council meeting, or provide you kind of a written document that kind of shows this assessment?
I would want it to come back at a future meeting. So I don't think that this would take particularly long in order to figure out where those crosswalks should best be placed, with or without the entrance. I think that would be fairly simple. And with that, when we say crosswalks, I'm envisioning what you have at Linda Vista with the solar powered, about $20,000 per unit, it looked like, to have those installed on each side of the street. Okay, thank you.
What is your anticipated timing for this to come back to council, Councilmember Moore?
Personally, I think it could come back in a couple weeks. I think.
So as early as possible is what you're saying?
Yes.
Okay.
The reason why, Mayor Paul,
I don't need the reasons at this point. So let me go ahead and ask for a second for your substitute motion. Vice Mayor Chow, you have your hand raised. Would you like to second the substitute motion?
Okay.
Okay, you're gonna go ahead. Okay. All right. So your hand's raised, and Councilmember Moore, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just wanted to make sure that we're, procedurally, correct going forward with our discussion. So let's go to you, Vice Mayor Chow. If you have comments, I'll remind you that Councilmember Moore's substitute motion is on the table at this point.
Okay. I might have an amendment, but I need more information first. So the Rignot Creek Trail is not open, but the access point to Lozano Easement is open. So people are using that. I see people not jaywalking across the street, whatever you call that, but it's open. So when will the Rignot Trail actually be fully open so we can assess the usage?
It's a good question. Staff, Chad, do you have any?
We're currently trying to finalize construction. We're putting up some of the necessary fences and actually the fencing around Lozano Lane should be going up. If it didn't go up today, we'll be probably going up tomorrow or the day after. The trail we're hoping to have open, I think the trail's supposed to be done hopefully by the end of the month-ish, but we're still going to be working on various private fences along the properties there. And so I'm hoping that the trail can be opened up within the next month or two.
Okay, so people will be able to ride them to the library or school or Creekside Park.
Yeah, I'll need to verify that exact timing because, like I said, there is going to be some additional construction that has to do with fencing, and I'm not sure if that's going to hamper trail usage. I'll need to investigate that and get you a little more detail. But we're hoping to have the trail project finished very soon, and again, have maybe a little bit of minimal disturbances for the fencing as it continues to be installed.
Okay, so Vice Mayor, did you want to propose an amendment to the substitute motion at this point?
Yeah, I like your original motion that staff come back after a year to assess the usage, because I really am wondering, leaving the access point at Lozano, if might encourage dangerous road crossing. Whether it's jaywalking or not crossing at a curved road is dangerous, as traffic engineer has pointed out. And it's so, and then I anticipate a lot of use of the trail by younger students who think they are getting to safety place, but the safety of a trail is only as safe as the weakest link, which is the crossing. So I would like to propose an amendment that after third year of the opening, that's bring back with an option to discuss whether the access point at Lozano Easement should remain, given our information of crosswalk at Lozano or not. Because without a crosswalk at Lozano, maybe then there is a question of should we even keep that access point.
Okay, well, that's a proposal for amending the substitute motion. So let me go back to the original motioner of that motion. So Councilmember Moore, would you accept Vice Mayor Chow's proposed amendment to your motion?
Okay. Could it be stated something like that we evaluate the safety situation along Rodriguez after proposed changes have been made during a 1 year time, something like that, because we want to look at it after a year, but we want to see it after we've done whatever we're doing. So if we're going to be putting one or two crosswalks along Rodriguez, and we want to see how much pedestrian traffic is actually happening on Lozano, we need it all to be put together before this 1 year happens. So we haven't. So the substitute motion is asking to have have the staff comes back giving us their proposal for where these crosswalks would be, with it, whether we have the vacation of the easement or not. So we've got one scenario where you might have a crosswalk close to Lozano or not, and then one where and you have one probably near the other entrance by City Hall, and then you'll have another, the other suggestion where you perhaps just have one. I personally think you're going to need 2 crosswalks on Rodriguez, to whether you have Lozano open or not. I kind of think you're going to need that, or that it would be preferable, but I could be wrong there. And then we want the proper signage, but I'm just a little confused how we're going to do the 1 year return, which I agree with doing, but I'm a little confused about how to word that in this motion. So perhaps you mean to evaluate the area after 1 year. What do you want us to do?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to go ahead and call on Chad here, but I think you're making some assumptions with regard to what staff would come back and suggest. From hearing the discussion tonight, I think it's possible that staff would come back and suggest that the best thing at this time would be to put no crosswalks on Rodriguez. But let me go to Chad at this time. So Chad, did you have some commentary and follow up to this?
Mayor Paul, you're exactly right. Staff is not recommending that we place a crosswalk in here. We're stating that we may be able to place a crosswalk that would meet highway design standards, but we're not recommending a crosswalk either here or down by City Hall. With respect to the timing, I would recommend setting it up as a year after the notice of completion of the trail. So once we complete the trail and all the fencing and everything is fully operational, which could be a couple of months, could be longer, depending on how long the fencing takes, and I can try and track down that schedule for you. But once that project's complete, a year from that date, typically notice of completions are recorded with the county, so we've got a date set in stone, and we can set something up a year after that.
Okay, so Councilmember Moore, does that adjust your thinking on your substitute motion and or the proposed amendment to it?
So, well, the proposed amendment looks like evaluate safety 1 year after the trail is opened, very simply.
So can I state that?
Sure.
So 1 year after the formal opening of Rignot Creek Trail, the staff will come back with usage data for the council to evaluate the option for crosswalk locations and consider the value of the access point at Lozano Easement. And also, I think we forgot to, I think the signage probably also need to include that this easement is for daytime use only.
And I apologize, I can work with the city attorney on the proper signage language to make sure that it meets requirements. I think I'll commit to trying to have that done prior to trail completion. So.
Okay, so Mayor Paul, it looks like my item 2 was vague enough so that it will include the hours of operation, hours that it's open, and then I accept the amendment as stated by Vice Mayor.
Okay. Okay. So I'm assuming, Vice Mayor, that you second the acceptance of your amendment, yes?
Yes.
Okay. So, Councilmember Way, let me go to you at this point. We have an amended substitute motion on the table, Councilmember Way.
Yes, Mayor Paul, may I see your original motion?
Let me see what I can do here. I modified the language. So let me.
I screenshot it if you wanted.
No, it's okay. I can put this back on. Just give me a moment. Just do some Control Z's here. Let's see. My original motion. All right, so here's my original motion. I think, Councilmember Way, I'd be happy to share the modifications I made to the motion.
That would be good, because I like your original motion with some modifications.
Yeah, okay, so let me share the original motion here. Okay, so I think this is it. Yeah. So this should be the original motion, and then based on the comments and discussion, my modified motion spoke to, and I'll just remind everyone that this is not on the table, or my original motion's not either, but I move that council direct staff to place a pedestrian, pathway, no cycling, or similar sign on both sides. I think I must have shared the wrong one again, or what happened here? Okay, let me try to do this again. Document 3. So this is my modifications. So here, to evaluate in place, the evaluate and is a reaction to Councilmember Moore's comment about getting staff's recommendation there, which I think speaks to what Chad was saying a moment ago. And then following legal notice of completion of the Regnart Creek Trail was another time point that was indicated by Chad. I think, let me just say this. I think the substitute motion is different. And I acknowledge that. I just want to make sure that everyone's clear about what's on the table right now. That's Councilmember Moore's substitute motion, and that's a request to bring this back as early of a date as possible with regard to trying to map out some options for, recommendations and crosswalks. So that's on the table right now. And on top of that is a request to bring back the item, again, a year out. Although I'm not sure if the year was specified as to, legal completion of the trail or after, modifications were made based upon.
Formal opening of the trail.
Yeah, so I mean, what I heard, Vice Mayor Chow was a year out from, because this is what Councilmember Moore suggested, a year out from when any modifications based upon the exercise that she was contemplating in her substitute motion was completed. Which is to say that if staff was to come back, hypothetically and say, you could put a crosswalk here, because that's what I heard Chad was saying. Chad was basically saying you could put one crosswalk here and we could be compliant. But he's not recommending that crosswalk necessarily, and I don't hear that he's contemplating the 2 crosswalks that Councilmember Moore was suggesting. So my understanding of what the substitute motion says, based upon your discussion, is that if that crosswalk comes in, it would be a year after those modifications were made based upon the current exercise that's contemplated by the substitute motion. So that's my understanding, based upon the discussion. But I think, and this is a reason why I asked people to write down their motions so that we can understand, have a common basis. So I would basically refer this over to the city clerk to read back what she has been recording as the original motion, together with the amendment. Otherwise, we really don't have a common basis to discuss the motion that's on the table. Because, we could have 3 people with 3 separate understandings. And, frankly, I mean, I have that training to kind of, winnow in on like what was discussed. But I think that not everyone does. And so like that thing might float, in people's minds as we're kind of going along and having ideas. So my suggestion would be that we ask our city clerk what her understanding of the substitute motion with the amendment is right now.
Sure. So we have the modified.
Maybe you can screen share. That might be easier.
Okay. Let's see. Okay, so this, let's see, this is, mayor's motion, I will move past. So, and now, okay, so Councilmember Moore's modified motion to direct staff to come back with a crosswalk mapped both with and without the Lozano Lane entrance. And informing council how to be a safe area for crossings and have staff suggest proper signage and safety precautions for the trail entrance and come back at a future meeting. And then Vice Mayor Chow amended that motion to direct staff to return to council after 1 year after the formal opening of the trail to discuss whether the access point and the Lozano easement should remain, given the information of a crosswalk at Lozano or not. Does that make sense?
It seems we are missing the information about easement, right?
Okay, where would that be?
Councilmember Moore.
Sorry?
Through the mayor, that information about the other easements in the city will be given to us just a separate informational item from Chad Mosley. So that wasn't added on. It's a separate extra information that we'd like to have. And the originals, the first sentence for Moore, where it goes, motion to direct staff to come back with a crosswalk map, both with and without Lozano Lane entrance, informing council how it will be a safe area for crossings, something like that, and have staff suggest proper signage. My concern is that we have now created a reason for people to cross Rodriguez, be it at Lozano or at the larger entrance just to the east of the city hall. We will have a collection of people crossing the street, and that we need to essentially gather them together into one location safely to cross, whether it has the flashing lights or not. But I am concerned that you're going to have essentially now 2 attractive nuisances on the south side, and people will be kind of willy-nilly crossing the street all over the place rather than having them gathered together in a safe location. So if it can be proven that is not a problem, I don't want to see a safety situation where we have a pedestrian or a little kid on a bicycle have an accident out there. So and that's where my concern is from, and why I want to see the information first. How can we make sure that it's going to be safe before we approve it, and then go, well, let's just let it happen and have a year pass and see how it went. I'm concerned about that.
Well, I appreciate your concern, but I don't see, if I'm mapping this out visually, I don't see staff coming back at us with a different recommendation than what they have tonight in either 2 weeks or even 2 months. I think we're going to be sitting here with the same assessment that we could have one crosswalk that's compliant with state safety standards, and we'll be sitting here whenever that is in the recent future or the relatively near future, and trying to figure out whether to approve that crosswalk. And you might even be saying, well, at the other western, entrance of the trailhead, or the other western access point near the driveway of into the city hall parking lot, maybe we need another crosswalk, which I understand is what you're saying, but I'm also not hearing from staff any indication whatsoever that they would be coming back in 2 weeks or 2 months and recommending that crosswalk. So I appreciate the concern. I just don't know how this course of action gets us closer to alleviating what your perception of the correction might be. So I'm kind of leaning against supporting this motion for that reason. But I'm open to hearing what other feedback points there are. I see Chad has his hand raised, but also Vice Mayor Chow and Councilmember Way. Let me start with staff. Chad, do you have other comments here?
Just briefly, typically, crosswalk placements usually are accompanied with kind of pedestrian volume studies. And since we're, going to be evaluating usage data for both the trail and Lozano, that may be an opportunity to also try and get pedestrian volumes for potential crosswalks. Just as an FYI, that may be an option there.
Okay. Well, all right. Vice Mayor Chow and then Councilmember Way. Although let's go to Councilmember Way since we've yeah.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Paul. I think we're making a lot of assumptions, and then we don't have data. So I do like your modified motion because we need to collect data before we can make any assumptions. I just don't think that staff can come. I don't think we need to wait for another 2 months, a few weeks, and for the staff to come up with recommendations that with no data, like Chad said. So I do believe we need to make this decision tonight and then do it a data-driven decision later. So I would think it's too there's no data. How do you say which pedestrian, how many crosswalk you can do? So I just don't think that we need to postpone this decision now, but we can collect data after the trails open and then work on staff recommendations according to data collected.
Okay, Vice Mayor Chow and then Councilmember Moore.
First two for minor comments and then regarding the motion. So could you, where it says safety precautions, could you also just add hours of operation so I don't forget?
After
safety precautions, I think it's more in Chow.
And what was it? And
hours of operation. So we don't forget to add that in the signage.
Kirsten, I would recommend that you do a copy and paste so that the original modified motion is there.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then for the easement, I asked the staff about the easement SEMA brought up, and the staff said that most of them are owned by other public agencies like Water District, and the city maintains some of them, and the other agency maintains some of them. If we bring back more information about easement, I am especially interested in those owned by private property owners, and I would like to know whether the city maintains them or not, and how were those decisions made. And that will be interesting to know. Yeah.
Okay, thanks, Vice Mayor Chow. And just
wait, the other comment about the motion, I think I share Councilmember Moore's concern that it's on the one hand, I think Mayor Paul was right. We should get some data, but on the other hand, this next year, we are saying open season, cross the walkway, we'll see what happens. And the staff strongly has stated that a crosswalk near Lozano Lane is not recommended. So whenever this decision comes back with crosswalk location, I would like us to also consider the value of the access point at Lozano Easement, because if it's really not appropriate to install crosswalk there, then leaving that access point is probably waiting for accident to happen. So that should be something we consider together at that time. Thank you.
Yeah, no, Vice Mayor Chow, thank you very much. And I have to say, I do appreciate the discussion. And, I am starting to be swayed by the idea of coming back earlier with some value add in this. So Kirsten, I would just say that paragraph you just added and copied, I would put it behind the next paragraph because that's after the amendment. So then, and now let me go to Councilmember Moore just to verify. Councilmember Moore, are you okay with adding that hours of operation language there as the original?
Absolutely. I had it
just
vaguely on purpose, but I did have a statement to make.
Okay, well, before you do that, let me go back just formally to Vice Mayor Chow. So Vice Mayor Chow, your amendment has been accepted by the movement, and you're the seconder. So I just need to formally ask you, do you accept your own amendment as the second?
Yes, but
okay,
I guess my statement also include another amendment. If we bring this decision back earlier on crosswalk location, probably we should also consider access point the value of the access point at that time. Just so it's on the agenda, we can consider.
And again,
I need Councilmember
Kirsten,
Moore.
again, same thing. She's amending it again, so we have to do another, kind of copy paste.
Okay. Okay.
And Vice Mayor Chow, I have to be frank with you. I'm not quite following. My mind is not quite getting around what you're asking for. So, repeat it again. So, with regard to the access points, once again, what are you asking for in this amendment?
So just add, consider the value of access point at Lozano easement.
And consider the value?
And
So
consider
is this
the
in
value.
reference to the allegation that this is $1 million easement or something like that?
No, just in case we decide not to have crosswalk there, then
Okay, so this has nothing to do with the kind
then the
of,
safety of people still crossing, right?
so the value is
leave that open.
Okay, public efficacy.
Safety, it's for safety.
Okay.
Mayor Paul and Vice Mayor, I believe the first part actually kind of, it's vaguely, I vaguely crafted the first part enough so that safety issue is covered by the staff coming back and saying, we could have a crosswalk here and here, or our preferred recommendation is this. If we have one crosswalk, we put it here, and we think this about that crosswalk, or we could have two crosswalks, and that this is our opinion about it. So I'd like a recommendation to go along with it. So advice and recommendation from them. So the first part, I believe, adequately covers it, and we're just adding more language and complicating where I don't think we really need it. I think they understand.
But the first part doesn't include the evaluation of the access point.
How it will
whether we need it or not, whether leaving it open would increase the risk of safety. I mean, would motivate people to cross the walk, right? Cross that section.
I mean, you're talking about a risk-benefit analysis with regard to. Yeah.
I mean, if we don't leave it there, I don't know if we can discuss it. That's my point.
Yeah.
I just want to be sure it's something we can talk about.
Okay.
Are you okay with adding
I agree. Oh, go ahead. Add it in as long as it makes sense.
It's a legitimate data point. I don't know how staff's going to go about evaluating it, but I do see it's a very legitimate point in terms of weighing the the costs and benefits of future action here. So Vice Mayor Chow, I assume that you're going to go ahead and accept that as a seconder as well.
Thank you. Yeah.
Okay. All right. So we've got a I don't know how many amendments to the substitute motion there are, but here it is. And then we also had Vice Mayor Chaz, your original amendment stands. So where's Kirsten, if you can just, where it says Chow amended the substitute to direct staff to return to council 1 year, et cetera, et cetera. So that's still part of the motion at this point. So Councilmember Moore, do you have any kind of final thoughts before we consider the substitute motion?
Thank you, Mayor. So I am concerned that we did have public statements as to the numbers of pedestrians crossing Rodriguez, and the city regularly gets traffic studies which anticipate the future traffic which we would have from a certain development, and I think that I'm surprised that this detail was missed, that we needed to get pedestrians across Rodriguez, and I think it was you could say misrepresented to us that pedestrians wouldn't be crossing Rodriguez because it would be jaywalking, or that pedestrians would go to Torrey and or Blaney in order to cross the street. And what we're hearing from people who've been out there is that even now, without the trails, without the access, there is a crossing issue. So I just want to bring that up, that in the future, I think this kind of situation should be ironed out in advance, so that we're not doing this kind of discussion at the 11th hour. Thank you.
Okay, great. So Kirsten, that's great. The very last paragraph there on that page that you have, page 6, more shall modified, instead of her, modified the amended substitute motion, the amended substitute. Because it became amended by that paragraph, the amended substitute motion, and then again, that same language, amended, should be added to the next paragraph to modify the amended, so that should make it a correct. Yeah, and then that would encapsulate the amendment in this shorter paragraph, 2 paragraphs above. Okay. So
maybe do you want to merge that my amendment about the coming back after 1 year, or?
Well, I think it can be cleaned up, with the minutes, but the understanding is that you have this last paragraph together with that shorter paragraph there as the substitute motion that's been amended and modified a couple of times. So, okay. All right. I don't see any further hands raised. I'm going to go ahead and so I'm going to go ahead and call for a vote. I'll just go ahead and read this out as the substitute motion. The substitute motion that's on the table after modifications and amendments is as follows. Moore shall modify the amended substitute motion to direct staff to come back with a crosswalk map, both with and without the Lozano Lane entrance, informing council how it will be a safe area for crossings, and have staff suggest, I think it should be staff suggesting proper signage and safety precautions and hours of operation for the trail entrance, and considering the value of access points at the Lozano easement at that time, and to come back at a future meeting. And I'm sorry, I'm just kind of wordsmithing nits here. And to come back at a future meeting with the original amendment of the substitute motion as follows. Chow amended the substitute motion to direct staff to return to council 1 year after the formal opening of the trail to discuss whether the access point and Lozano easement should remain, given the information of a crosswalk at Lozano or not. I think the end of that sentence is kind of problematic. Should remain, given the data regarding, given the then existing data, given the then existing data regarding the crosswalk infrastructure at Lozano. And then just get rid of or not. Structure at Lozano, okay. So let me, I'm just saying I'm cleaning up the language here. And I think it's correct based upon my understanding of what was trying to be, put on the table. Councilmember Moore, are you okay with?
Yes, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay. And Vice Mayor Chow, you're okay with that as the final motion?
Thank you.
With the language correction? Okay, you're welcome. All right, so let's go ahead. Councilmember Way, you have your hand raised?
Yes, I need a clarification. I have a clarification question regarding the this motion.
Yes.
Does it mean that the staff need to come, that we're not making decisions tonight, and staff need to come back in a certain future time for us to discuss this easement again, because we have that additional information on the crosswalk proposals?
Yes, that's correct. So this motion brings us back in the relatively near future, when it can be brought back, with regard to providing more information regarding a crosswalk, but also more information regarding other safety data points, including including other easements, including data with regard to the usage that they can glean, given what we have right now. And then specific suggestions regarding what signage will be put in and other, safety precautions, in addition to the hours of operation issue that was raised, vis-a-vis another trail at a different part of town. And I think those are the points that I had heard that would be coming back in the near future. And then from there, if we make a decision as to whether to implement infrastructure at that time, then that would become part of the data that is ultimately considered a year out from the formal opening of the trail. So that's the motion on the table, Councilmember Way.
I see. Okay, one more clarification question. So that's presumed when we get those data, we can make decisions.
That's
Okay,
correct. Right. I mean, that's.
But those are proposed by. Oh, but the staff will come back those proposals with no data, though.
Well, I think there is data out there that we're not seeing this evening, and so I think so. What kind of moved me a little bit was talking a little bit about some of the usage data that they can get at this point, and and the other part about it is that, well, I think it's legitimate to come back with the benefit of thought and absorbing of the comments from council and public tonight, and see where we're at in be it a couple of weeks or 6 weeks or a couple months. With regard to trying to optimize the safety features of this, because I think the point is well taken. I mean, I was particularly, I don't want to say moved, but I thought it very enlightening when I saw the map that was provided by Vice Mayor Chow as to how this easement originally connected to the then Regnart Trail, or what was called the Regnart Trail. So it is, it's truly a different usage than was originally used and contemplated. So, I mean, I think it is legitimate to take a look at this. And, as we all know, we're all familiar with the road around City Hall. It is quite possible to, consider, in terms of potential enhancement of safety and accessibility, this a bit earlier. And I don't want to venture here, but I think if you're looking at the very general civic center, I mean, crosswalks in general have been, kind of brought up by the public. But, I won't go to areas outside of this particular, easement at this time. So, yeah. Does that answer your questions, Councilman?
Yes. So it depends on how long does the staff takes the staff to collect all this information, come back to us. And my only concern is then all the public will have to come back again. But I guess it's worth to listen to the data, more information.
Yeah, I mean, here, what I'm not hearing is, what I'm not hearing is a suggestion that the closure of the easement come back. I mean, there's a lot of, data points that are being requested here, and it really focuses more on potential crosswalks here. But yeah. Okay. So Councilmember Way, your hand is still raised. Did you have any further comments or questions? Okay, so we have a motion on the table. No further comments. Let's ask our city clerk to conduct a roll call vote on the substitute motion.
Councilmember Moore?
Aye.
Councilmember Way?
Aye.
Councilmember Willie?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Chow?
Aye.
Mayor Paul?
Yes.
Motion carries with Way voting no.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a 5-minute break. It's 10:08 right now. We'll go ahead and return at 10:14 to item number 11, which will be under ordinances and action items. All right, we'll see you at 10:14.